This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Fourth Wing video. If you do not know, Fourth Wing is my favorite book. Is it technically the best book? No, absolutely not. But is it my favorite? Absolutely yes. Not only do I love Fourth Wing, but I do have 3 copies of this book. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? This should not be allowed. This is the book that got me into my reading era, so you could say that this book is the reason this channel exists. If Rebecca Yarros did not write Fourth Wing, my videos would not exist. They just simply wouldn't. It's only fair and fitting and appropriate that we discuss her in her full length. All right, slight backstory. It takes place at Basgiath War College. Violet, main character. Her mom, General Sorrengail, she is like the Dumbledore of the school, okay? She's like the head of the school. At Basgiath, there are 4 different quadrants you can enter into.
One is the healer quadrant. They, heal people. They're like the doctors. There's the infantry. They're like foot soldiers, human shield type vibe. And then there are the scribes, and they are like the historians. They document everything. They log all the events. They're like the librarians. And then there are the riders, okay?
The riders ride dragons in the war, and they're kind of like the coolest. They're the badasses. They're not going to let just anybody into this riders quadrant, okay? So in order to enter the riders quadrant, you have to cross the parapet, which is essentially like a rock wall, the top of a rock wall that's like really high up. So if you fall off the parapet, you die upon impact. A lot of people don't like that they all die, and that the school is cool with that. And like, if there are so few people willing to even go to the college, why are you killing so many of them off whenever you could send them to another quadrant? Look, I get it. I get the concerns, but it is explained a little bit more in Iron Flame, and I will obviously be talking about that one also before Onyx Storm comes out, so you will be getting your answers. Our main character, Violet, she's weak, she's frail, she's pale. Because she is frail, pale, fragile, etc., weak, she was trained at a young age by her dad, which this is the same picture Carrie used in her video for ACOTAR for Feyre's dad, and I was just like, I'm sorry, there's not a better casting for Violet's dad than this, so thank you, Carrie, for the inspiration. Her dad, scribe quadrant, okay? Her mommy, writer. They are fighting the gender norms. Her sister, Mira, and her brother, Brennan, were both trained to be writers by the mom. Brennan dies in battle during the Tirish Rebellion, which was led by Finn Ryerson. Violet's dad, he goes a little crazy after this, and then he dies of like a heart attack. So it's kind of giving like he dies from heartbreak, So her dad is dead. Brennan dead. So all she's got left is Mira and her mommy. When Violet turns of age to go to the college, her mom forces her to go to the writers quadrant, which is like, what? She's frail. She's weak. She's fragile. How is she going to survive? Good question. That's what the entire book is about. Obviously there's like a series, so like obviously she survives. I don't feel like that's a spoiler, but yeah, so this is like Violet's time through her first year of Basgiath War College. Her mom's a writer, her sister's a writer, her brother was a writer, and her mom is not going to let her join the scribe quadrant. Why, you may ask? We don't know. We don't know. Just let it happen. We've got some theories for you at the end, okay? Our book opens up, chapter 1, with Violet preparing to walk the parapet. She's packing her bags. She's got a lot of stuff in there, and Mira is like, bro, you cannot carry all that. There's no way you can carry all of your items. You're so weak and frail and fragile. You can't carry all this stuff. So she like lightens her pack for her, and she gives her a dragon scale vest made from her dragon's scales. So during molting season, she gathered her dragon scales, and then she knew a guy who had the power to shrink and enlarge things. To get our first dick joke, Mira was able to scale the dragon scales down to make a vest for Violet. So it's like some impenetrable armor, low-key. Good. Violet needs that. So she's got the armor on. She's lined up her backpack, and we also meet General Lilith Sorrengail, which is Violet's mom, and she is Cersei because she's kind of a hard ass, and she's not really the most comforting mom. She's very like distant. I don't even think she tells her that she loves her. She just says, make sure you don't die. We find out Violet is frail and weak because her mom, whenever she was pregnant with her, had a fever, and it says It stole all your coloring along with your strength. So that's why she has pale eyes, pale hair. So her hair is dark at the top and then it fades into silver. Okay. We get a little internal dialogue. It's not the first time I've heard her curse the sickness that nearly killed her while she was pregnant with me, or the library Dad made my second home once she'd been stationed here at Biscayeth as an instructor and he as a scribe. And her sister's kind of freaking out because she knows that Violet is very likely to die in this Rider's Quadrant. And so Mira is like yelling at her mom and she's like, Dad wouldn't have wanted this. And Lilith is like, well, he's dead. I doubt he wants much these days. Like, this is where we get a bit of the callousness of Lilith Sorrengail. This book is entirely in Violet's POV, by the way. Her mom says, Mira, Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you do in an entire week. If any of my children is capable of surviving the Rider's Quadrant, it's her. Kind of respect that, Lilith. You've kind of got a point there. Another little lore drop. Whenever they bond with their dragons, it's kind of like a tether to them. So the dragon provides them with powers that manifest in a form of a signet, aka power. So we find out that Lilith, Violet's mom, has the power of storms. It's kind of like the more powerful your dragon is, the more powerful your signet is. We hear from Violet's mom that she will not be able to acknowledge Violet for the next 3 years because since she's commanding general, she'll be her far superior officer. So that means that they can't speak to each other. I think this is just filling a plot hole because if she could talk to her mom, this book would have a lot less questions. And we also learn that Violet's not going to receive any special treatment because she is Dumbledore's daughter. If anything, people are actually going to hate her more to make her prove herself that she is a Sorrengail. Sure. So if you don't pass the entrance exam, you can't walk the parapet. So there is some sort of vetting that is occurring before you walk the parapet. So it's not just like walk the parapet and then die. It's kind of like there's some weeding before. Anyways, Mira takes Violet to the parapet. She's walking her up this long ass hill, big ass hill. And Mira's just kind of like pep talking her, giving her some pointers and stuff for the quadrant, surviving the quadrant. Violet gets distracted by Mira's little pep talk speech thing because she sees a guy like a few people ahead of her with like a relic, which is essentially like a tattoo. This distracts her because she's never seen one before. And she's like, Mira, is that? And she's like, a separatist kid? Yeah. See that shimmering mark that starts on the top of his wrist? It's a relic from the rebellion. And she's like, a dragon did that? General Milgren's dragon did it to all of them whenever he executed their parents. So they punished the kids to deter more parents from committing treason. Mira remembers to tell Violet, stay the hell away. She says, stay the hell away from Xaden Ryerson. And guess who? Guess who our love interest is? Yes, surprise, surprise. He's a third year and he will kill you the second he finds out who you are. Stop. His father was the great betrayer. He led the rebellion. What is Xaden doing here? All children of the leaders of the rebellion were conscripted as punishment for their parents' crimes. Mom told me they never expected Ryerson to make it past the parapet. Then they figured a cadet would kill him, but once his dragon chose him, well, there's nothing much that can be done then. He has now risen to the rank of wing leader, and I'll put up the hierarchy of power within the Rider's Quadrant of the school. So Xaden is a wing leader, and Violet's like, that's some bullshit. They shouldn't let those traitors into the school. And Mira's like, well, he's sworn allegiance to Navarre, which is their country. But I don't think that'll stop him where you're concerned. Once you get across the parapet, because you will make it across, manifesting queen, find Dane. He'll put you in his squad and we'll just hope it's far from Ryerson. Stay away from him. She says, noted. Does she immediately forget? Yes. They've reached the parapet, okay? So now Mira has to leave Violet. They hug, goodbye. This won't be goodbye because you're going to survive the parapet and school. So this is the last time I'm going to see you, but I love you. Good luck. Violet is now standing in line with the other cadets of the school, and she meets Rhiannon. She also meets this guy named Dylan. Imagine his picture here. She sees Rhiannon's boots, okay? And Violet had some of these boots on earlier, and her sister was like, you are going to slip and fall off. Those boots have no traction. And so Violet asks Rhiannon, what size shoe do you wear? And she gives Rhiannon one of her boots. She's just a good person. So she lends Rhiannon one of her boots. And Rhiannon's like, thanks. Dylan, I guess he's got good boots on. He's got a promise ring necklace on because he is going to marry his hometown girlfriend whenever he gets done. Dylan says, plus I've heard that riders are allowed to marry sooner than the other quadrants. And she says, true. Right after graduation, I think it has something to do with wanting to continue bloodlines. Most successful riders are legacies. A little interesting tidbit here for, I think, the future of this series. Dylan is like so confident. He's like, I'm not dying. It's going to be a breeze. All right. Okay. And I have to read this little part for you. 3 riders wait at the entrance, which is nothing more than a gaping hole in the wall of the turret. One with ripped off sleeves records names as candidates step out onto the treacherous crossing. Another, who shaved all of his hair with the exception of a strip down the top center, instructs Dylan as he moves into position, patting his dress like the ring hidden there will bring him luck. I hope it does. The third turns in my direction and my heart simply ... stops. He's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark eyebrows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble. And when he folds his arms across his torso, the muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a way that makes me swallow. And his eyes, can't even see him. His eyes are the shade of gold-flecked onyx. The contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. His features are so harsh that they look carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect. Like an artist worked a lifetime sculpting him, and at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. He is the most exquisite man I have ever seen. And living in the War College means I've seen a lot of men. How has she lived in the War College and not seen this man's? That's what I want to know. How has Violet gone? He's been in this. You can only be a wing leader if you're about to graduate, if you're a senior. How has he been here this whole damn time? And she's never seen him, especially since he is a threat to her life. Seems like they would have done something about that. You know what I'm saying? But wait. I think where Violet lives is not in the Riders Quadrant because you have to cross the parapet to get there. I'm not quite sure. Even the diagonal scar that bisects his left eyebrow and marks the top corner of his cheek makes him hotter. Flaming hot. Scorching hot. Gets you into trouble and you like it level of hot. Suddenly, I can't remember exactly why Mirror told me not to fuck around outside my year group. Dylan says, see you two on the other side. And he's like, popping onto the parapet, no problem. The rider with the ripped sleeve says, ready for the next one, Ryerson? Xaden Ryerson? You ready for this, Sorengale? Rhiannon asks. Moving forward, the black-haired rider snaps his gaze to mine, turning fully towards me, and my heart thunders for all the wrong reasons. A rebellion relic, curving and dips and swirls. Starts at his bare left wrist and then disappears under his black uniform to appear again at his collar, where it stretches and swirls up his neck, stopping at his jawline. Oh shit, I whisper, and his eyes narrow as if he can hear me over the howl of the wind that rips at my secure braid. Sorengale? He steps toward me, and I look up and up. I don't even reach his collarbone. He's massive. He has to be more than 4 inches over 6 feet tall. You're General Sorengale's youngest. Your mother captured my father and oversaw his execution. Your father killed my older brother. She says, are you okay, Violet? And he's like, are y'all friends? And then Violet's like, yeah, we met just now. And he's like, Violet? She's just straight up. She says, are you going to kill me? As they're having this conversation, a scream rips through the air. Rhiannon and I both jerk our attention to the parapet just in time to see Dylan slip. I gasp, my heart jolting into my throat. He catches himself. Rhiannon shouts, pull yourself up, Dylan. And she says, Xaden never takes his eyes from me, watching silently with a look I can't interpret as I bring my horrified gaze back to his. He says, why would I kill you when the parapet will do it for me? Stop. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. Look, guys, this first part kind of sucks. I am not a natural storyteller or writer, although I am a natural at having an opinion. Thankfully, Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video, has been the perfect resource to help level up my skills to make these videos actually watchable. Whether you want to start your own booktube channel, write your debut dragon fantasy novel, or just starting a daily journaling practice, Skillshare has the perfect class for you. But wait, it's not just for writing, okay?
They literally have thousands of classes that are led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, productivity, freelance even. Anything y'all could think of that someone could teach you how to do, they have it. My personal resolutions for 2025 are to grow my channel and like just make the best content I possibly can and try and experience new things. And what better platform for that than Skillshare? I have been loving this YouTube success class with MKBHD, who's literally like the GOAT of YouTube, for help with my script writing, filming. Like, y'all, that stuff does not come naturally to me. It does not. So if y'all want to help me with my New Year's resolution and get a head start on yours, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So get started today, guys. Seriously, stop procrastinating. I know you want to do it. And if you're afraid, just take the leap, because I believe in you. Because if you want to do it, you will make it happen. Also, please click the link so Skillshare will want to work with me again. Thank you. Okay. Let's get back to Violet and Xaden, okay, guys? Yeah, Dylan, he falls and he is dead. It really sets the tone for the whole book, you know? Lots of people die. Lots of them die, which I like that. I like when books aren't afraid to kill people off. So Violet, she's crossing this parapet, and this is where I really love Rebecca Yarros's writing. Even on my reread, I was anxious reading Violet crossing the parapet because I was like, this is stressful. It's still stressful. It's also raining, which you may be like, her mommy commands storms. Why is she allowing it to rain? Well, her mom is not giving out any freebies here. If it's going to rain, she's going to let it rain because she's not going to give Violet any sort of assistance. So it's raining on top of all of this, and it's windy, and Violet slips and falls on her knee hard. And then she's like, ah. Violet looks behind her to see how far back the person is that's behind her, and she sees Jack Barlow, okay? Not to be confused with Jack Harlow. Okay, so it's like Violet, a cadet, and then Jack. Jack catches up to this cadet and throws him off of the parapet. He is unhinged. He throws that guy off. And then Jack, he's like, I'm coming for you, Sorrengail. And so he's like running across the parapet to get to Violet, which is insane. Violet's stressing now. Violet's got to get through. She's got to get going because Jack is coming for her and he's going to throw her off too. So Violet makes it to the end, thank God. And then Jack is right behind her and she turns around. She whips around with her dagger. This is my dagger. I guess it's like a step down. So she's down here. He's up here. And she like puts her knife to his dick, I guess. And she's like, I'm going to cut your balls off. Don't fucking threaten me. So we get where she's a little bit violent, okay? And she's over all these people wanting to kill her. So she's like, if you're going to kill me, fucking do it. And also, I may chop off your balls. And then another second year rider is like, look, she's on the green, so she is a cadet officially, but you're nothing because you haven't stepped down yet. So she kind of has you by the balls, literally. And so he kind of like is like, and he jumps down, but he, you know, is obviously not going to kill her today, but he's gonna try his best throughout our time together. Oh, Rhiannon also, she crosses fine. Rest in peace, Dylan. He never even got a chance. After Rhiannon gets done crossing the parapet, they both crossed it together. Yay! Rhiannon's like, thank you, Violet. I would have died if it weren't for your extra boot. I was slipping and sliding everywhere. And so they're like exchanging boots. And then somewhere out of the corner of their eye, a tall figure starts charging at them. Rhiannon manages to miss him, but Violet hits him smack in the chest. And he's like, Violet? Strong hands catch my elbows to steady me, and I look up into a pair of familiar, striking brown eyes, flared wide in obvious shock. Relief sweeps through me, and I try to smile, but it probably comes out like a distorted grimace. He seems taller than he was last summer. The beard that cuts across his jaw is new. He's filled out in a way that makes me blink, or maybe that's just my vision going hazy at the edges. The beautiful, easygoing smile that's starred in way too many of my fantasies is far from the scowl that purses his mouth. And everything about him seems a little harder, but it works for him. The line of his chin, the set of his brow, the muscles of his biceps are rigid under my fingers as I try to find my balance. Sometime in the last year, Dane Atos went from attractive and cute to gorgeous. And I'm about to be sick all over his boots because she has adrenaline rush from the parapet. Okay.
He says, what the hell are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the scribe quadrant, like your daddy. And she's like, yeah, my mom wouldn't let me. And he's like, Dane's dad, Colonel Atos, he's not on here, sorry, is her mom's like BFF slash like second in command, I think. Their parents are besties, so they were besties because they both grew up at this war college. Violet's always had a crush on Dane. She loves Dane. She goes to Dane's room and she's wrapping her knee and he's kind of like conjuring up a plan to get her to go to the scribe quadrant. And she's like, no, I don't want to go to the scribe quadrant. If my mom finds out that I went to the scribe quadrant, she's just going to bring me back to the writer's quadrant. So no point in leaving if I'm just going to have to come back, you know? There's some tension between Violet and Dane in Dane's room, okay? She's just like, I've missed you. And he's like, I've missed you too. You know, there's kind of some googly eyes occurring between Violet and Dane. And he says, you look different. And Violet's like, it's just the leathers. And she's like, why is different bad? And he's like, it's just different. And she's like, why, Dane Atos? You've seen me in swimwear, tunics, and even ball gowns. Are you telling me it's the leather that does it for you? So cringe. It's so cringe. But I love it. And he says, glad to see our year apart hasn't dulled your tongue, Vi. I can do quite a few things with my tongue. You'd be impressed. Violet, chill. She just escaped death and she's already thinking about sucking Dane's dick. Like, stop. She was literally just puking 5 minutes ago and now she's already thinking. Come on, Violet. Get it together. So once Violet crosses the parapet, something kind of changes in her. She was a little insecure before, but now that she's crossed the parapet, she has some newfound courage, okay? She's like, I already have been defying the odds. I already crossed the parapet. Which, like, okay, girl, you've done one trial out of, like, how many? But pop off, queen. She's like, I can't chicken out. You know, I've made my decision. I've made it this far. I think I'll have more regrets than not if I, like, leave now and go to the scribe quadrant. She's like, I just wouldn't feel, like, right. I wouldn't feel fulfilled by my choice. I would always be like, what if I entered the writer's quadrant? And what if I survived? And then what if I actually got a dragon? And then, you know. So she's like, I don't think I could handle not giving this a good try. And I respect that. I really do. And Dane fucking hates this. He fucking hates this. He says, do you think I want to watch my best friend die? Do you think it'll be fun to see what they'll do to you knowing you're General Sorrengail's daughter? Putting on leathers doesn't make you a writer, Vi. They're going to tear you to shreds. And if they don't, the dragons will. In the writer's quadrant, you either graduate or die. And you know that. Let me save you. He is like pleading with her. Please, let me save you. This like low-key pisses her off already because she's like, you don't have any fucking faith in me. You don't think I have the guts. You don't think I have what it takes. There's a joke there somewhere. He says, you don't understand the epic highs and lows of high school football. And she says, yes, I do. She finds out that Dane has powers and that he has the power of mind reading, which is a forbidden signet, but Dane is allowed to have it because he has to touch their face. He can't just like be standing around and then like reading minds, you know. He's got to touch them. So that's Dane's power. After the bell rings, they all go to formation, Violet and Rhiannon, just to like hear the opening remarks, you know, the little opening ceremony for the school. And Violet can't help but notice Xaden, okay? And all these cadets are like avoiding being in his direct path. They're like giving him a lot of space. And she's like, what kind of power does Xaden have that elicits this kind of fear from other cadets? Commandant Panchek, he's also not on the board, sorry. He announces that there were 301 cadets who survived the parapet. 67 people fell, which was a higher number than it was last year, probably due to the whole rain storm sitch. Tara, one of their new buddies, says that she thinks that Panchek is trying to go for Violet's mom's job. And then eventually he wants General Melgren's job. And Violet's like, ain't no way that's going to happen because General Melgren has the power to see the outcomes of battles. So with a signet like that, I'm sorry, but he's not going anywhere. So Commandant Panchek is going to have to like get his shit straight. General Melgren is the commanding general of all Navarre's forces. So he's like the leader of the Navarrian army. She also talks about how General Melgren can't even be assassinated because he's going to see the outcome of it. So You can't really kill him like that, okay? Oops, forgot to mention, whenever they cross the parapet, Dane tells Rhiannon to go to the girl who's taking roll and tell her to put Violet and Rhiannon in Zane's squad because he's a squad leader. As they're assigning squads to wing leaders, Violet is like really grateful whenever Dane is given to like another wing leader that isn't Xaden. But hold on. Xaden steps in and goes, you know? Violet sees this across the room. And then they say, correction, swap squads. So now they're going to be in Xaden's wing. They are moving to fourth wing. Oh my God, it's the name of the book. They're moving to the name of the book, fourth wing. It takes a minute, maybe two, and we take our place in the new formation. I force myself to breathe. There's a fucking smirk on Xaden's arrogant, handsome face. I'm now entirely at his mercy, a subordinate in his chain of command. He can punish me however he likes for the slightest infraction, even imaginary ones. Xaden says, "You're all cadets now. Take a look at your squad. These are the only people guaranteed by Codex not to kill you. But just because they can't in your life doesn't mean others won't. You want a dragon? Earn one." Most of the others cheer, but I keep my mouth shut because Violet is smart. She knows that this school ain't nothing to cheer about, all right? And Xaden's like, "I bet you feel pretty badass right now, don't you, first years?" And everybody's cheering, you know? "You feel invincible after parapet, don't you? You think you're untouchable. You're on the way to becoming the elite, the few, the chosen." Another round of cheers goes up with each declaration, louder and louder. No. That's not just cheering. It's the sound of wings beating the air into submission. Rhiannon says, "Oh gods, they're beautiful." A riot of dragons comes into view, which I guess is like, like a murder of crows. It's like a riot of dragons. Now I understand why the walls of the school are 10 feet thick. It's not a barrier. It's a damned perch for the dragons. Because Violet, she's never been allowed to watch what happens on conscription day. A few cadets scream. Steam blasts my face as the navy blue one directly in front of me exhales through its wide nostrils. Dane's pissed that the dragons are like crumbling the rock wall. There are 3 dragons in various shades of red, 2 shades of green, like Tyne, Mirror's dragon, who their scale armor is made out of. 1 brown, like her mom's, 1 orange, and the enormous navy one ahead of me. So we get a little lore backstory. We find out that the dragons need humans to develop signet abilities from the bonding to weave the protective wards that they power around Navarre. There are also these creatures, griffins. They're similar to dragons, but these are more bird-like. They're smaller, and they are from like warring countries. They have griffins, but in Navarre they have the dragons. And the dragons, they call the shots because they're humongo. They don't want the griffins to come into their space, so they allow humans to bond with them so the humans can like protect the area. Like, I'm sure that the dragons could find a way to protect it on their own, but it's for the plot, okay? Violet is afraid of these dragons, okay? These dragons are huge. They're like buildings tall. And then one of the cadets screams and runs away from the side of the dragons, and then the red dragon opens its mouth and incinerates that cadet. So now 68 are dead because that one got incinerated by the dragon. So dragons, they do whatever the fuck they want. They can like read the souls of humans, I guess. And so if the dragons make a judgment, everybody's like, cool, whatevs. So that's why Dane is like, oh my god, if the dragon finds out that you're weak as shit, they're gonna just kill you because you're gonna be like so unworthy of riding them that they're just gonna kill you. Anyways, we also find out some more lore where it is a dragon without their rider is a tragedy. But a rider without their dragon is dead, which means rider on top of the dragon, okay? If they die, the dragon can still survive and live on. And the dragon is really sad sometimes. And sometimes, like, the bond is strong, okay? But the dragons are more powerful than the humans, obviously. So, rider dies, dragon can be sad. And then maybe it'll take a few years off, however long they deem fit to grieve their bereavement time. And then, they can join threshing at another year and then get a new rider. Okay. And the bonds increase in strength as the dragon bonds more riders, so each bond is stronger than the next. The reason it's called a tragedy is because sometimes if the bond is super strong between the rider and the dragon, that the death of the rider can cause the dragon to die. Because, like I said, the strength of the bond increases with each new rider. But, if the dragon is killed in battle or in some other fashion, then the rider, no matter what condition they're in, the rider is going to die. Obviously, there's a lot less threats to the dragon's life than there are to the human's life, so this is like rare, but if your dragon dies, then you will die. That's just the rules, all right? I don't know why it happens that way, but it does. The navy dragon seems to tilt its head at me as if its narrowed golden eyes can see straight through me to the fear fisting my stomach and the doubt curled insidiously around my heart. I bet it can even see the wrap binding my knee. It knows I'm at a disadvantage, that I'm too small to climb its foreleg and mount, too frail to ride. Dragons always know. But I will not run. I wouldn't be standing here if I'd quit every time something seemed impossible to overcome. I will not die today, she says it again. Xaden, he's given us some more speech. He says, anyone else feel like changing their mind because that cadet ran away? No? Excellent. Roughly half of you will be dead by this time next summer. A third of you again the year after that, and the same year last year. No one cares who your mommy or daddy is here. Even King Tori's second son died during his threshing. So tell me again, do you feel invincible now that you've made it into the Riders Quadrant? Untouchable? Elite? No one cheers. And the first year head of Violet pisses himself during this little speech. And Violet's like, okay, so they want us scared. Mission accomplished. Xaden says, you're not untouchable or special to them. To them, you're just the prey. Violet is also, my back hurts. Violet is also sleeping in the armor, dragon scale armor that Mira gave her because Mira was like, bro, you need to wear that at all time because people will try to kill you in your sleep here. Even though it's against the codex, they will do it. Schedule of the school is that they do Gauntlet first, okay, which is a terrifying vertical obstacle course. Then you complete the final Gauntlet and you'll walk the field for presentation, which is where all the dragons line up. You know, it's like a little interview for the dragons. They get to like learn your personality a little bit. They get like a little sense of you, you know, so you're like presented to the dragons. And then 2 days after presentation, threshing will occur in the valley beneath the citadel. Threshing is whenever the dragons choose the riders and then they get their dragons. Day says, stick together. I expect all of you to be live with me this afternoon in the sparring gym. And then a smartass says, and if we're not? And she says, I don't bother looking. But Rhiannon does, rolling her eyes as she turned forward. Dane says, then I won't have to be concerned with learning your name since it'll be read off tomorrow morning during the death roll that they read every morning. They read off all the names of the people who died. That smartass who said, and if we're not alive, that's Riddick, okay? We got Tyler Posey for Riddick. This is my favorite fan casting for Riddick. I think Tyler Posey's a bit too old to play him now, but I still enjoy this casting. Riddick is our comedic relief. He's our goofball, okay? He provides us some necessary lighthearted moments. We also meet Sawyer, who is a part of their group. He is Finnick because he kind of gives a little Finnick energy. He is a repeat first year because he went to threshing last year but didn't bond a dragon. So he has to repeat the entire first year again until a dragon bonds him. So this is their little squad. There are some others, but these are the only ones worth putting on the board, really. So that's a little spoiler, I suppose, but you know, whatever. They disperse and they're headed to their classes. Dane like bird calls Violet over to like this little corner and Violet's like, okay, I don't know why you're being sus, but whatever. I guess it's kind of uncouth of them to, you know, to have sexual relations with like your leader, you know what I mean? So Dane's trying to be like secretive, okay? And Dane is like, okay, found a way to get you into the scribe quadrant. And Violet's like, haha, no. He's like, nobody tried to screw with you last night? And she's like, haha, would it be so bad if they did? Ugh, shut the fuck up, Violet. He's like, you know what I mean. Don't joke around, Violet. And she's like, nobody tried to kill me last night or even hurt me. Pretty sure we're all too tired and relieved to be alive to start slaughtering one another. And he's like, did you eat? And she's like, yes, okay. And he's like looking at her hair and he's like, you should cut it. And she's like, don't start with me. There's a reason women keep it short in here, Vi. The second someone gets a hold of your hair in the sparring ring, She's like, my hair is the least of my concerns in the sparring ring. I'm just trying to keep you safe. You're lucky I didn't shove you into Captain Fitzgibbon's hands this morning and beg him to take you out of here. She says, I ignored the bluster of a threat. Xaden Ryerson wants you dead. It's common knowledge among the leadership after yesterday. He moved the squad so he has a direct line to me, so he can do whatever he wants and no one will question a thing. I'm his revenge against my mother. And he's like, do your best to keep a low profile, especially when we're battle brief. Not like the colors in your hair don't give you away, but that's this one class the entire quadrant takes. I'll see if one of the second years can stand guard. She's like, no one's going to assassinate me during history. Do you honestly think he's going to stab me in the middle of class? He's like, I wouldn't put it past him. He's fucking ruthless, Violet. Why do you think his dragon chose him? The navy blue one who landed on the dais yesterday? My stomach twists. And he says, Sigale is a blue daggertail and she's vicious. He swallows. Don't get me wrong. Kath, Dane's dragon, is a nasty piece of work when he gets riled. All red swordtails are, but even most dragons steer clear of Sigale. And she's just kind of like, oh, like you're just like different. You have powers now and you have a dragon and you're just so different. It's hard to imagine that you're still like Dane, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm still Dane, Violet. Don't worry. This is our little explanation of Dane's signet. Okay, it says, I can read a person's recent memories. Not like an intrinsic reads minds or anything. That's the forbidden one. I have to put my hands on the person, so I'm not a security risk. That is why they don't let the intrinsics live, because they could essentially just read the minds of all the officers, all the generals, and then obviously they couldn't keep things classified, so they just have to murder them. My signet's not common knowledge. I think they'll use me in intelligence. They all wear patches in this thing. They all wear patches on their little uniforms. So the sigil on his patch indicates that his signet is classified. Violet just didn't notice it yesterday. And she takes a calming breath, knowing that she didn't see that signet on Xaden's uniform yesterday. So she's like, whew, at least I can know what Xaden's signet is. Sorry, there's a lot of quotes in this beginning part because these quotes are really like hallmark to the book. Dane says, this place can warp almost everything about a person, Vi. It cuts away the bullshit and the niceties, revealing who you are at your core. They want it that way. They want to sever your previous bond, so your loyalty is to your wing. It's one of the many reasons that first years aren't allowed to correspond with their family and friends. Otherwise, you know I would have written you, but a year doesn't change that I still think of you as my best friend. I'm still Dane, and this time next year, you will still be Violet. We'll still be us. And Violet's like, if I'm still alive. And we get a little reveal. Sorry, fuck. And he's like, Xaden is going to find a way to kill you within the Codex. So he said, I was really close with a wing leader last year. Her name was Amber Mavis. And I'm telling you, the Codex is sacred to them. Now, you go first. I'll see you in the sparring gym. And she's like, really close with Amber Mavis. I'm a little jealous. I'm a little fucking jealous. Okay, so Violet is headed to class, and she is headed to Professor Devera class, which is battle brief. This is a class where essentially telling all the cadets about recent happenings within the border walls and threats that are occurring and things. So then it gives the cadets like an opportunity to like brainstorm and come up with different tactics for the enemies and ask the right questions. So whenever they graduate and go to their own outposts, they're able to like lead their outpost and like figure out what to do, because the riders are like the leaders of the army. As she's not making her way to class, she enters the rotunda. She feels him staring at her. The energy radiating off of him is like palpable. His head tilts and he studies me with those impossibly dark eyes, like he's deciding where I'm most vulnerable. He's like, what are you doing, Violet? Why are you just standing here? And she says, top of the steps, fourth door. So Xaden's like on the top of like this balcony thing, and then Dane and Violet are like down on the ground. So Xaden's like above them, shouting down at Dane and Violet. Xaden says, I already knew your parents were tight, but do you two have to be so fucking obvious? The few cadets who are still in the rotunda turn to look at us. Let me guess. Childhood friends? First loves even? Oh, damn. Violet whispers to Dane, he can't hurt you without cause, right? And Dane says, correct, but you're not. Xaden says, I expected you to do a better job of hiding where your affections lie, Atos. Xaden moves, walking down the steps. Dane says, run, Violet, now. And she bolts. Our next epigraph is a brief For King Tory by General Lilith Sorngale. Knowing I am in direct disagreement with General Melgren's orders, I'm officially objecting to the plan set forth in today's briefing. It is not this general's opinion that the children of the rebellion leaders should be forced to witness their parents' executions. No child should watch their parents be put to death. Cersei, General Lilith Sorngale, she's not the worst. She has a heart, okay? That's what this brief is showing us, that she has her limits. Okay, so they're in battle brief. Professor Devera, she tells us that riders rarely get called into service before graduation. She locks eyes with Violet, and she's like, because she obviously knows her, but she's like known that she's supposed to go to the scribes. But she says, because this class is taught every day and relies on the most current information, you will also enter to Professor Markham, who deserves nothing but your utmost respect. Professor Markham did not make the cut for the wall. There were too many people to cast, and I was running out of time. And she whispers something to Professor Markham, and his head whips towards Violet, and she's like, and he's kind of like sad. His eyes are weary. She was supposed to be Professor Markham's star pupil in the Scribe Quadrant, his crowning achievement before he retires. How absolutely ironic that I'm now the least likely to succeed in this one. Professor Markham says, it is the duty of the scribes not only to study and master the past, but to relay and record the present. So they're like historians. So I guess Professor Markham is in battle brief too. Whatever. She says, first topic of the day. Eastern Wing experienced an attack last night near the village of Shakir by a drift of Bravey griffins and riders. And she's like, oh shit. Naturally, some information is redacted for security purposes, but what we can tell you is that the wards faltered along the top of the Esben Mountains, allowing the drift of griffins and griffin riders to not only enter Navarian territory, but for their riders to channel and wield sometime around midnight. So griffins are similar to dragons in that they can channel and wield power, but I don't think it's as strong as the dragons because they're like smaller. They're still large, but they're significantly smaller. Here we get some explanation between griffin and dragon. Griffins are from Poromiel, and they also share the ability, but dragons are the only ones capable of powering the wards that make all other magic, but their own impossible within our borders. The wards cancel griffin power because the only power that's allowed within the wards is dragon power. I don't know, y'all. Just go with it. So anyways, the griffins don't have power. They're just kind of bodies if they're inside of the wards. But the wards faltered, and so they were able to channel power. Not good. Violet says in her mind, without the wards, they're fucked. It would be open season on Navarian villages when the raiding parties from Poromiel inevitably descend. Those greedy assholes are never content with the resources they have. They always want ours too, and until they learn to be content with our trade agreements, we have no chance of ending conscription in Navarre, no chance of experiencing peace. So, if only the Poromian citizens and the griffins start to learn to have gratitude for the things they have and not be greedy, they wouldn't have to do this whole riders bullshit, and they wouldn't have to go to war college. So Violet is kind of like, holy shit, how did the wards fall? But she's like, I guess if we're talking about it here in battle brief, then they were able to get them back up, because if they were still down, that would be like red alert, you know? 37 civilians were killed in the attack an hour before a squad from the Eastern Wing could arrive, but the riders and dragons managed to repel the drift. Based on that information, what kind of questions would you ask? And she's asking only the first years. This is where Violet flexes a little bit of her knowledge. She's like, my first question would be, why the hell did the wards falter? But obviously, they're not going to answer that in a room full of cadets with no security clearance. So she says the Esben mountain range is the highest along our eastern border with Breivik, making it the least likely place for an attack, especially since griffins don't tolerate altitude nearly as well as dragons, probably due to the fact that they're half lion, half eagle, and can't handle the thinner air at higher altitudes. There's a reason we've been able to fend off every major assault on our territory for the last 600 years. We've successfully defended our land in this never-ending 400-year-long war against Poromiel, I suppose. Our abilities, both lesser and signet, are superior because our dragons can channel more power than griffins. So why attack in that mountain range? What caused the wards to falter there? So she's like, why would a griffin, number one, go to the mountain range? Because they don't fly very well in that kind of altitude. And then number two, why did the wards falter in that specific location? A first year ahead asks, is this the first time the wards have faltered? And they say no. And another girl says, how often are they faltering? And they said, that's above your pay grade. Next question. Professor Devereux asks a guy in their squad prior, he didn't make the board, if he wants to ask a question, because he had his hand up and then he put it down, and he's like kind of indecisive, and he's like, yes, no, wait, yes, no, wait. And then another girl in their squad who also didn't make the board, Luca, she says so decisive, and she's like mocking Pryor. Okay. Orly, another girl in their squad who also didn't make the board, I'm so sorry. She tells Luca, the other girl, to show some loyalty because they're in a squad together. So like, don't mock him. Luca says, please, no dragon is willing to bond a guy who doesn't know whether he wants sausage or bacon, because he couldn't also decide between sausage or bacon this morning at breakfast. Yikes. Violet tells Rhiannon to ask what altitude the village is at. And she's like, why? But Violet's like, just do it. And so she asks. And then Professor Devereux is like, thank you for your question, Rhiannon. If Sorrengail would like to ask her own questions from now on, that'd be great. And Violet tells us that griffins aren't as strong at that altitude, and also their ability to wield is also lowered. She says it's an illogical place for them to attack unless they know the wards would fall, especially since the village looks to be about, an hour's flight from the nearest outpost? That is Shakir right there, isn't it? And she's like, it is. Keep going. And she's like, didn't you say it took an hour for the squad of riders to arrive? And she's like, I did. And then Violet's like, well, then they were already on their way. She immediately recognizes how silly that sounds, because that would mean that the riders, dragon riders at the nearest outpost, would have known that the wards were going to falter. So they would have had to start going there before the wards actually fell and the griffins arrived. So she's like, I know that sounds silly. And of course, Jack makes fun of her for this. He says, yeah, because that makes sense. General Melgren knows the outcome of a battle before it happens, but he doesn't know when it'll happen, dumbass. Rhiannon's like, fuck off, Barlow. He's like, I'm not the one who thinks precognition's a thing. God's help us if that one ever gets on the back of a dragon. And then everybody's like, ha ha ha, laughing at Violet. And Professor Devereux's like, she's right. And a hush falls over the room. She says, one of the drags in the wing since the faltering ward in the wing flew. Had they not, casualties would have been far higher and the destruction of the village would be much worse. And now second and third years can answer their questions. They're asking all kinds of questions, like how many riders were deployed, what killed the lone fatality, how long did it take to clear the village, were any left alive for questioning. And then somebody says, a deep voice asked from the back of the lecture hall, what was the condition of the village? The hairs on the back of my neck rise, my body recognizing the imminent threat behind me. Ryerson? The village. Professor Devereux said the damage would have been worse, but what was the actual condition? Was it burned? Destroyed? They wouldn't demolish it if they were trying to establish a foothold, so the condition of the village matters when trying to determine a motive for the attack. She smiles. The buildings they'd already gone through were burned, and the rest were being looted when the wing arrived. And Xanon's like, they were looking for something, and it wasn't riches. That's not a gem mining district, which begs the question, what do we have that they want so badly? And she's like, that's the question. And that right there is why Ryerson is a wing leader. You need more than strength and courage to be a good rider. And somebody's like, so what's the answer? And she's like, we don't know. It's just another piece of the puzzle of why our constant bids for peace are rejected by the kingdom of Paromiel. What were they looking for? Why that village? Were they responsible for the collapse of the ward, or was it already faltering? Tomorrow, next week, next month, there will be another attack, and maybe we'll get to another clue. Go to history if you're looking for answers. Those wars have already been dissected and examined. Battle Brief is for fluid situations. In this class, we want you to learn which questions to ask so all of you have a chance at coming home alive. Something in her tone tells me it's not just third years who might be called into service this year, and a chill settles in my bones. And Rhiannon is like, you literally knew every answer in history and every question to ask in Battle Brief. And Rhiannon's like, I'm shit at history and all that stuff, but I'm good at fighting. And Violet's like, well, guess what I'm bad at? So then they decide to tutor each other. So Rhiannon's going to help Violet fight for sparring class with Immaterio, and Violet is going to help Rhiannon with her history. Immaterio, we meet him. He is Professor Lockhart because he does not give a shit about the survival of his students. Like, they be killing each other and he's like, moving on. Their safety is not his concern. Anyway, so they come up with their little pact, and Violet is also going to help Sawyer with his history. So it's while someone's sparring that they make that deal. And another mat over, someone shrieks, and we all turn to look, and Jack Barlow has another first year in a headlock. The other guy is smaller, thinner than Jack, but still has a good 50 pounds on Violet. The sickening crack of bones breaking sounds across the gym, and the first year goes limp in Jack's hold. And Violet says, "Sweet Malik," which is their god of death. So you're going to hear his name a lot. I whisper as Jack drops the man to the ground. Okay, Immaterio, he's like, I guess he's a little bit concerned because he says, "What did I say? You broke his damn neck." And then Jack is like, "How was I supposed to know his neck was that weak?" And he's like, "Eyes forward. You don't have to get used to this killing, but you do have to learn how to keep going through it." So he's like, "Eyes forward, everybody. Don't you look at it. Look at the person who died, because this is what life is going to be like as a dragon rider." After Jack kills that guy, Immaterio is like, "Okay, Rhiannon and Tynan to the mat." Violet sees how good Rhiannon is at sparring and how she's like reminding her of Mira. She gets Tynan in a chokehold, and he's like, Dane's like, "You may want to yield, buddy." And he's like, "Fuck off, Atos." And then Immaterio's like, he yields because he's just trying to get this over with. And then Immaterio, he's just like picking people to go against each other. So he says, "You and you." Violet says, "She's at least a head taller than me, and if the rest of her body is as toned as her arms, then I'm pretty much fucked." My heart threatens to beat out my chest, but I nod and step onto the mat. And Rhiannon's like, "You've got this." And then Imogen, which is pink-haired girl, says, "Sorengale, you should really dye your hair if you don't want everyone to know who your mother is. You're the only silver-haired freak in the quadrant." She's mean to Violet. "Never said I cared if everyone knows who my mother is. I am proud of her service to protect our kingdom from enemies both without and within." As her jaw tightens at the dig, a bubble of hope rises in my chest. Marked ones, as I heard some people this morning refer to those carrying rebellion relics on their arms, blame my mother for the execution of their parents. Fine, hate me. Mom often says the minute you let emotion enter a fight, you've already lost. I've never prayed harder that my ice in her veins mother was right. "You bitch, your mother murdered my family." She lunges forward and swings wildly, and I quickly sidestep, spinning away with my hands up. We do that for a few more rounds, and I land a few jabs, start to think that my plan might just work. She growls low in her throat as she misses me again, and her foot flies at my head. I easily duck, but then she drops to the ground and kicks out with her other foot, which lands square in my chest, sending me backward. I hit the mat with a thud, and she's already above me so damn fast. And Dane is like, "You can't use your powers in here, Imogen." She's using her powers against Violet. Imogen is trying to kill Violet. Her eyes are above mine, and I feel the quick slide of something hard against my ribs as she smiles at me. But her smile fades as we both look down, and I can't help but notice the dagger being resheathed. The armor just saved my life. Thank you, Mira. Because she stabbed her. But the dragon armor saved her. Confusion mars Imogen's face for a second, long enough for me to send my fist into her cheek and roll out from under her. My hand screams with pain, even though I'm sure I formed the fist right, but I block it out as we both gain our feet. "What kind of armor is that?" she asks, staring at my ribs as we circle each other. "Mine." She uses her powers again, and Immaterio's like, "Imogen, do it again and I swerve the wrong way this time, and she catches me, taking me to the floor. The mat smacks my face, and her knee digs into my back as she pulls my right arm behind me. "Yield," she shouts. I can't. If I yield on the first day, what will the second bring? No. Now I'm the one lacking common sense like Tynan, and I'm far more breakable. She pulls my arm farther, and pain consumes every thought, blackening the edges of my vision. I cry out as the ligaments stretch, shred, and then pop. "Yield, Violet, yield!" Gasping for breath against the weight of her on my back, I turn my face to the side as she wrenches my shoulder apart, the pain consuming me. She yields. That's enough. I hear it again, the macabre sound of snapping bone, but this time, it's mine. Ah! Yikes, 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 yikes. Imogen, you see what corner she's in? Not looking good. Violet is now being taken to the healer quadrant because Her arm is broken. But luckily, there is another mender. His name is Nolan. He also is not on this wall, but if he were, he would be Morgan Freeman. I saw somebody have him as that, and I thought that was quite clever. So she goes to see Morgan Freeman, aka Nolan, and he is a mender like her brother Brennan was. And he's been mending her for her whole life because, you know, she's frail and weak and fragile. So he's mending her broken arm. Dane is sitting there, you know, and he's like, look, I talked to Markham and he said he's still going to take you in. And so after your arm is healed, I'm going to take you to the Scribe Quadrant. And you're going to leave this place because, like, your arm literally just got fucking snapped during sparring class. And she doubles down even harder now. And she's like, hell no, I'm not backing down. I'm not going. And I'm pissed at you, Dane, for not believing in me. Dane is talking to Violet. And he's like, do it for me. And she's like, no. I'm not doing shit for you, Dane. And Dane is like having a panic attack because he's like, I can't protect you. And this is like killing Dane. And you know what? I think Dane gets a little bit too much hate for that. I understand. Like, if you love somebody, you want to like protect them, okay? So like lay off on Dane, all right? Lay off on him for a little bit. Later that night, after her arm is mended and it's in her sling, because like it's not automatically magically healed, like it'll still be sore for a couple of weeks. She's making her way back to her little dorm room, and they sleep in the barracks. So it's essentially like a giant room and it's just beds. She sees Rhiannon, and Rhiannon's like, yay, how are you? You doing good? And she's like, I'll be fine. And then Violet goes to her bed and she finds a book there, a small book. Wait, no, it's a journal. And it has a little folded note on top in Mira's handwriting. And she opens the note. And it says, Violet, I stayed long enough to read the rolls this morning, and you aren't on them. Thank gods. I can't stay. I'm needed back with my wing, and even if I could stay, they wouldn't let me see you anyways. I bribed a scribe to sneak this into your bunk. I hope you know how proud I am to be your sister. Brennan wrote this for me the summer before I entered the quadrant. It saved me, and it can save you too. I added my own bits of hard-earned wisdom here and there, but mostly it's his, and I know he'd want you to have it. He'd want you to live. Love, Mira. And so Mira has now gifted her the Book of Brennan, as it is called in the book. Brennan is the oldest. Mira's the middle child. Violet's the youngest, just in case you were curious about the birth order. First page says, Mira, you're Sorrengail, so you will survive. Perhaps not as spectacularly as I have, but we all can't live up to my standards, can we? All kidding aside, this is everything I've learned. Keep it safe, keep it hidden. You have to live because Violet is watching. You can't let her see you fall. Brennan. You survived parapet. Good. Be observant the next few days and don't do anything to draw attention to yourself. I've sketched a map that shows you not only where the classrooms are, but where the instructors meet too. I know you're nervous about challenges, but you shouldn't be, not with that right hook of yours. The matches might seem random, but they're not. What the instructors don't tell you is that they decide the challenges the week before. Any cadet can request a challenge, yes, but instructors will assign your matches based on weeding out the weakest. That means once the real hand-to-hand starts, the instructors already know who you'll be up against that day. Here's the secret. If you know where to look and can get out without being seen, you'll know who you're fighting so you can prepare. So she is happy because that means Violet knows how to survive. If she knows who her opponent is going to be, then she can prep in advance. So that's how she's going to survive the sparring, because the sparring is the thing that she is the most fearful of, because that's where someone can kill you and like it's fine. Okay, we get another little epigraph here, and it says, in the best interest of preserving peace within Navarre, no more than 3 cadets carrying a rebellion relic may be assigned to any squad of any quadrant. In addition to last year's changes, marked ones assembling in groups of 3 or more will now be considered an act of seditious conspiracy and is hereby a capital offense. So, no more 3 of them can meet together. Violet finds out how to know who she's gonna fight the next day, and she decides that she's gonna start poisoning them with berries. It's late in the night, okay? It's past curfew, but she's out sneaking around the campus grounds because she's trying to hunt for these poisonous items that she can use. She also started breakfast duty so she can sneak these poisonous items into people's food without them knowing. So the day of like their sparring challenge, they'll be like weakened. Earlier, whenever Mira is helping Violet pack her bag. Mira like offloaded a bunch of Violet's books, but Violet kept the book of poisons. So that's how she knows how to make these poisons. Violet finds this tree that produces these berries that if you pick them before they're ripe and then you dry them, then they are poisonous. So she's climbing this tree. She's up there picking her berries, putting them into her little satchel in her little vials. She's like about to come down the tree, and then two figures in black cloaks, they start walking underneath the protection that is this tree's canopy. Okay, one of the black cloaks leans back and her hood falls a little bit and she sees pink hair, which we all know to be Imogen. The second rider takes off his hood, and guess who it is? Xaden. She's like, fuck, I am out past curfew, no one is here to save me. The two people who want to most kill me are now underneath my tree. Love that. There's a river rushing nearby. She can't hear what they're talking about, but that's good because that means they also can't hear her. And she's like thinking, she's like, why are they out here? Are they like lovers? Friends? And she's like, I can't help but wonder if she's the kind of girl that he goes for, or one whose beauty is only outmatched by her brutality. They fucking deserve each other. Xaden turns away from the river as though he's looking for someone, and sure enough, more riders arrive, gathering under the tree. They're all dressed in black cloaks as they shake hands, and they all have rebellion relics. Oh my god, there's almost 24 of them. A few third years, a couple of seconds, but the rest are all firsts. She's like, their gathering could be completely harmless, right? She's like, maybe they're homesick, but also maybe they're conspiring to burn Basquiat down. And she's like, oh, I feel like I have to tell Dane. But she's like, I can't even hear what they're saying. So she's like, oh, like I need to know if I have to tell Dane. So she's got to get closer. So she gets a little closer. She starts overhearing their conversation. And it seems like Xaden is just giving them, the first years, some pointers. Xaden says, we've already lost Sutherland and Luperco. Like it or not, we're going to have to stick together if you want to survive until graduation. And what if they find out we're meeting? Xaden says, we've done this for 2 years and no one's ever found out. They're not going to know unless one of you tells. And if you tell, I'll know. Like Garrick said, we've already lost 2 first years to their own negligence. There are only 41 of us in the Riders Quadrant, and we don't want to lose any of you, but we will if you don't help yourselves. The odds are always stacked against us. And trust me, every other Navarian in the Quadrant will look for reasons to call you a traitor or force you to fail. And Violet thinks, damn it, I don't want to find a single thing about Xaden Ryerson admirable, and yet here he is being all annoyingly admirable. Asshole. Xaden says, how many of you are getting your asses handed to you in hand to hand? 4 hands shoot in the air, but none of them belong to Liam. He's in a second squad tail section of our wing and already the top cadet in our year. He practically ran across the parapet and destroyed every opponent on assessment day. And Xaden's like, shit. And Garrick's like, I'll teach them. And he's like, you're our best fighter. And then Bodhi says, you're our best fighter to Xaden. Violet says that his features are close enough to Xaden's that they may be related. Cousins, maybe? Finn Ryerson had a sister, if I remember correctly. Dirtiest fighter, maybe. Garrick is like, fucking ruthless is more like it. Like, ugh. And Xaden says, Garrick is our best fighter, but Imogen is right up there with him, and she's a hell of a lot more patient. So the 4 of you split yourselves up between the 2 of them for training. And then this other first year says, I can't do this. And Xaden's like, what do you mean? He says, I can't do this. The death, the fighting, any of it. A guy had his neck snapped right in front of me on assessment day. I want to go home. Can you help me with that? And Xaden says, no, you're not going to make it. Best accept it now and not take up any more of my time. It's all I can do to smother my gasp. And some of the others in the group don't bother trying. What a dick. The smaller guy looks stricken, and I can't help but feel bad for him. That was a little harsh, cousin. What do you want me to say, Bodhi? I can't save everyone, especially not someone who isn't willing to work to save themselves. Damn, Xaden. Way to give a pep talk. If they need a fucking pep talk, then we both know they're not flying out of the Quadrant on graduation day. Let's get real. I can hold their hands and make them a bunch of bullshit empty promises and about everyone making it through if that helps them sleep, but in my experience, the truth is far more valuable. In war, people die. It's not glorious like the bards sing about either. It's snapped necks and 200-foot falls. There's nothing romantic about scorched earth or the scent of sulfur. This, he gestures towards the Citadel, isn't some fable where everyone makes it out alive. It's hard, cold, uncaring reality. Not everyone here is going to make it home. to whatever's left of our homes. And make no mistake, we are at war every time we step foot in the quadrant. So if you won't get your shit together and fight to live, then no, you're not gonna make it. These are the Xaden speeches I fucking love. I love the no niceties. I love that he is like truthful and like is no bullshit. Damn, he's crazy. He says, now someone give me a problem I can actually solve. One of the first year says, battle brief. It's not that I can't keep up, but the information. And Imogen's like, that's a tough one. And Xaden says, you learn what they teach you. Keep what you know, but recite whatever they tell you to. And Violet's like, what the fuck does he mean by that? Everything we're taught to know is like current events. Like, what do you mean? And then a guy in the back says, when do we get to kill Violet Sorrengail? My blood turns to ice. Yeah, Xaden, when do we finally get to have our revenge? I told you already. The youngest Sorrengail is mine, and I'll handle her when the time is right. He'll handle me? My muscles thaw with the heat of indignation. That is not some inconvenience to be handled. My short-lived admiration of Xaden is over. Didn't you already learn that lesson, Imogen? What I hear is that Atos has you scrubbing dinner dishes for the next month for using your powers on the mat. Her mother is responsible for the execution of my mom and sister. I should have done more than just snap her shoulder, Garrick says. Her mom is responsible for the capture of nearly all of our parents, not her daughter. Punishing children for the sins of their parents is the Navarian way, not the Tirish. Hell yeah, Garrick. He's Emmett from Twilight, because he kind of gives Emmett energy. Because, you know, Emmett, he's like a little goofy and a little fun. So yeah, Garrick. We got him. Liam, sorry, forgot to mention. Liam, there was a lot of really good fan art for Liam. But Liam, I had to go with Liam from Teen Wolf, because every time they talked about him, that's what I was picturing in my mind. So we got Lily here and Garrick. Also, side note, thank you to all the artists who let me use their artwork. It was very kind of you. All their Instagram accounts will be listed in the description below. And Garrick says, in case you didn't notice, she's in the same death college that we're all in, so seems like she's already suffering the same fate. And she's like, am I seriously watching them debate over whether I should be punished for being Lilith Sorrengail's daughter? Xaden says, don't forget her brother was Brennan Sorrengail. She has just as much reason to hate us as we do her. And I'm not going to tell you again. She's mine to handle. Anyone feel like arguing? Good. Then get back to bed and go in threes. So they all leave in their groups of 3. They all go on their way. And then Xaden is the last to leave. And Violet's like, oh my God, I may actually like live. Like, that's pretty crazy. I'm pretty proud of myself. She counts to 500 in her head before leaving after Xaden leaves. Only when I'm sure I'm alone, when the squirrels scurry past on the ground, do I finish climbing from the tree, jumping the last 4 feet to the grassy floor. Zenal must have a soft spot for me because I'm the luckiest woman on the continent. A shadow lunges behind me and I open my mouth to scream, but my air supply is cut off by an elbow around my neck as I'm yanked against a hard chest. Scream and you die, he whispers. And my stomach plummets as the elbow is replaced by a sharp bite of a dagger at my throat. I freeze. I'd recognize the rough pitch of Xaden's voice anywhere. Fucking Sorrengail. His hand yanks back the hood of my cloak. How did you know? My tone is outright indignant, but whatever. If he's gonna kill me, I'm not going down as some simpering little beggar. Let me guess. You could smell my perfume. Isn't that what always gives the heroine away in books? I command shadows, but sure, it was your perfume that gave you away. He lowers the knife and steps away. I gasp. Your signet is a shadow wielder? No wonder he's risen so high in rank. Shadow wielders are incredibly rare and highly coveted in battle, able to disorient entire drifts of griffins, and if not take them down, depending on the signet's strength. What, Atos hasn't warned you not to get caught alone in the dark with me yet? His voice is like rough velvet along my skin and I shiver. Then draw my own blade from the sheath of my thigh and raise it as I spin towards him, ready to defend myself to the death. Is this how you plan to handle me? Eavesdropping, were we? He arches a black brow and sheathes his dagger like I couldn't possibly pose a threat to him, which only serves to piss me off even more. Now I might actually have to kill you. There's an undertone of truth in those mocking eyes. This is just bullshit. Violet says, then go ahead and get it over with. I unsheath another dagger, this one from beneath my cloak where it was strapped in at my ribs. He pointedly looks at one dagger, then the other, and sighs, folding his arms across his chest. That stance is really the best defense you can muster? No wonder Imogen nearly ripped your arm off. I'm more dangerous than you think. So I see. I'm quaking in my boots. And she thinks, fucking asshole. I flip the daggers in my hand, pinching them at the tips, then flick my wrists and fire them past his head, one on each side. They land solidly in the trunk of the tree behind him. You missed. He didn't even flinch. Did I? Why don't you back up a couple of steps and test that theory? Curiosity flares in his eyes, but it's gone in the next second, masked by cold, mocking indifference. Every one of my senses is on high alert, but the shadows around me don't slide in as he moves backward. His eyes locked with mine. His back hits the tree, and the hilts of my daggers brush his ears, so she did pew, pew, you know. And she said, tell me again that I missed. Fascinating. You look all frail and breakable, but you're really a violent little thing, aren't you? An appreciative smile curves up his perfect lips as shadows dance up the trunk of the oak, taking the form of fingers. That's kind of creepy. They pluck the daggers from the tree and bring them to Xaden's waiting hands. My breath abandons me with a sharp exhale. He has the kind of power that could end me without him having to so much as lift a finger. Shadow wielding. The futility of even trying to defend myself against him is laughable. I hate how beautiful he is. How lethal his abilities make him as he strides towards me, shadows curling around his footsteps. He's like one of those poisonous flowers I've read about from the Cygnus forests to the east. His allure is a warning not to get too close, and I am definitely too close. Xaden says, you should show that little trick to Jack Barlow, turning his palms upward and offering me my daggers. I'm sorry? This is a trick. It has to be a trick. He moves closer and I lift my blade. My heart stumbles, the beat irregular as fear floods my system. The next snapping first year, who's very publicly vowed to slaughter you, Xaden clarifies as my blade presses against his cloak at the level of his abdomen. He reaches under my own cloak and slides one blade into the sheath at my thigh, then pulls back the side of my cloak and pauses. His gaze locks onto the length of my braid where it falls over my shoulder, and I could swear he stops breathing for a heartbeat before he slides the remaining dagger into one of the sheaths at my ribs. He'd probably think twice about plotting your murder if you threw a few daggers at his head. And she's like, this is bizarre. This has to be some kind of game meant to confuse me, right? And if so, he's playing it really fucking well. And she's like, because the honor of my murder belongs to you? You wanted me dead long before your little club chose my tree to meet under, so I imagine you've all but buried me in your mind by now. Do you plan on telling anyone about my little club? His eyes meet mine, and there's nothing but cold, calculating death waiting there. No, I answer truthfully, suppressing a shiver. Why not? He tilts his head to the side, examining my face like I'm an oddity. It's illegal for children of the separatist officers to assemble in groups larger than 3. I'm well aware. I've lived at Biscayeth longer than you. And you're not going to run to mommy or your precious little Dane and tell him we've been assembling? You were helping them. I don't see why that should be punished. It wouldn't be fair to him or the others. Was their little meeting illegal? Absolutely. Should they die for it? Absolutely not. Interesting, he says softly. We'll see if you keep your word. And if you do, then unfortunately, it looks like I owe you a favor. He steps away, turns, and walks off, heading back towards the staircase in the cliff that leads up to the citadel. You're not going to handle me? I call after him, shock raising my brows. Not tonight, he tosses over his shoulder. I scoff. What are you waiting for? It's no fun if you expect it. Now, get back to bed before your wing leader realizes you're out after curfew. What? You're my wing leader? He's already disappeared into the shadows, leaving me talking to myself like a fool. A fool with Fonnelly berries. So Violet wakes up and she gets dressed, and Rhiannon is not in her bed. She's actually in bed with Tara, the girl from earlier. And Violet says, at least one of us is getting some much needed orgasms. Stop. Dane is walking Violet to her morning breakfast duty shift, and he's kind of giving her pep talk because today is her first challenge in Immaterio's class. So he's like, Violet, you need to steer clear of Barlow. Don't egg him on. Just steer clear of him and don't ruffle any feathers, particularly his. Which is in contrast to what Xaden told her. Remember, he said you should throw a couple daggers at him and maybe he'll get the point. We are now at my favorite professor's class, which is Professor Kaori. So he teaches Dragonkind. They learn about dragons in his class. And his signet is he's like a projector. He has projector eyes, like hands, like he can project images that he sees in his mind. He's an illusionist, sorry. Violet also used Kaori to ask him what Orin Seifert looked like, because that's who her challenge is against today, is Orin. So she had to know who to poison during breakfast duties. She says, do I feel guilty about blatantly misleading a professor about why I needed to find another cadet? No. Do I think it's cheating? Also no. I was doing exactly what Mira suggested and using my brain. Thank God we have a smart FMC. We find out that there are 100 dragons that are willing to bond this year. But some might change their minds during presentation in about 2 months, depending on what they see. And Violet's like, that's 37 fewer than last year. And then maybe even fewer if they decide that they don't want to bond because they don't like the looks of us during presentation. Okay, so this year they have 100 dragons willing to bond. The year before that, last year, was 137. And then the year before that, there was 163. So the amount of dragons willing to bond is like drastically declining over these past few years. We don't know why yet, but it's worth noting. Another first year asked Kaori, will they tell you why they won't bond? And then Jack is like, no, jackass. Is it weird saying jackass if your name is Jack? But Jack tells us that dragons only talk to their bonded riders, just like they only give their full name to their bonded rider. You should know that by now. And Kaori's like, they don't tell us their reasons. And anyone who respects their life won't ask a question they're not willing to answer. The image that Kaori's projecting turns to Sigale. He says, you won't have to worry about how to approach blue dragons since there are none willing to bond this threshing, but you should be able to recognize Sigale if you see her. And then Riddick says, so you can fucking run. She's a blue daggertail, the rarest of the blues. And yes, if you see her without her bonded rider, you should definitely find somewhere else to be. Ruthless does not begin to describe her, nor does she abide by what we assume to be what dragons consider law. She even bonded the relative of one of her previous riders, which you all know is typically forbidden, but Sigale does whatever she wants. Whenever she wants. There are a handful of other blues in active service, but you'll find them all along the Esben Mountains in the east, where the fighting is the most intense. They're all intimidating, but Sigale is the most powerful of them all. I love Sigale. I think if I existed in the Fourth Wing world, I would be Sigale. Because I think at my core, I'm just like a ruthless bitch who nobody can tell her what to do. So she kind of speaks to my innermost soul. So anyways, fun fact. And Violet is like, oh my god, no wonder Xaden can wield shadows. Like he has this powerful dragon, you know, channeling power to him. Jack asks, what about the black dragon? There's one here, right? He's like, I want that one. Kaori says, not that it's going to matter. And then he flicks his wrist and the image of a black dragon takes Sigale's place. But just to appease your curiosity, since this is the only time you'll ever see him, here is the only other black besides General Melgrins. And so he shows him the picture of the big ass black dragon. And Rhiannon is like, he's huge. And is that a club tail? He's like, no, a Morningstar tail. I don't know what these look like. He has the same bludgeoning power of a club tail, but those spikes will eviscerate a person just as well as a dagger tail. Best of both worlds. He looks like a killing machine. Kaori's like, yep, he is. And honestly, I haven't seen him in the last 5 years, so this image is like pretty outdated. But since we have him up here, what can you tell me about black dragons? They're the smartest and the most discerning. They're the rarest. There hasn't been one born in the last century. They're also the most cunning. There is no such thing as outsmarting a black dragon. This one is a little over 100, which makes him about middle-aged. He's revered as a battle dragon among their kind, and if not for him, we probably would have lost during the Tirish Rebellion. Interesting. Let's like note that, guys. Let's like make a note of like little things that may have an impact in Onyx Storm. Okay, so take that note and put it here. Jack says, I bet he powers one hell of a signet. How do you approach him? And Violet's like, the last thing this kingdom needs is someone like Jack bonding to the biggest black dragon ever. And Kaori says, you don't. he hasn't agreed to bond since his previous and only rider was killed during the uprising, and the only way you'd ever be near him is if you're in the Vale, which you won't be because you'd be incinerated before you ever got through the gorge. Jack says someone should ask him again. And then Kaori's like, it doesn't work like that, so shut the fuck up, Jack. Sit the fuck down and stop asking dumbass questions. He doesn't say that, but I wish he did. Now there's only one other black dragon, which is in service. And Kodag, Melgren's dragon, is the oldest of all the dragons in their den currently. And then Jack, he just won't shut the fuck up about this goddamn black dragon, okay? He says, just for curiosity's sake, what signet ability would this guy gift his rider? Like, shut the fuck up, Jack. I'm tired of hearing your shit. Story says there's no telling. Signets are the result of the unique chemistry between the rider and the dragon, and usually say more about the rider than the dragon. The stronger the bond and the more powerful the dragon, the stronger the signet. And Jack's like, fine. Can you at least tell me what the signet of his previous rider was? And he says Neolin's signet was siphoning, which is a crazy signet. He could essentially siphon power from various sources, other dragons, other riders, and then use it or redistribute it. Which is like, is that OP'd? Is Neolin OP'd? Obviously not, because Neolin is dead. But that's a weird fucking signet, okay? So like log that too. Put that in the fucking list. That's kind of a sus signet, in my opinion. Riddick says, badass. And Kaori's like, he was. Now he's dead. Jack says, what kills someone with that kind of signet? Because Jack's like, weak bitch, Neolin. We find out that Neolin died attempting to use his power to resurrect another rider during battle, and depleted himself in the process. The power works like the dragon, they have the power, okay? So then they bond to the rider and they gift this power to their rider. Obviously this rider is just a human and this dragon is like ginormous, okay? If like the rider tries to pull too much of the dragon's power, it essentially like overloads their system and it like burns them out, aka they die because like there's too much power and their body can't handle it. You know, they're just like a little human, okay? So yeah, Neolin did that. He tried to pull too much power from his dragon and that made him die. But we also find out that the person that Neolin was trying to resurrect was Brennan, Violet's brother. So here's another little theory for you. It's often theorized that Brennan and Neolin were like in a relationship together. And so whenever Brennan died, Neolin like tried to resurrect him because he was like in love with him. After class, Violet goes to Kaori and like asks him, and he's kind of just talking to her about some stuff, and she's like, I know there's a lot of people at this school that would like to knock me down a peg because of who my mom is. And he's like, you'll find that once you graduate, that is not the case. Anyone will do anything to help you to get into good graces with your mom. So like it is a disadvantage here while you're at school, but once you're out there, pretty much anyone will do anything to help you because of who your mom is. That's Kaori's explanation for why Neolin tried to revive Brennan, but it's not satisfying enough. Kaori also says bonding makes you a rider, but resurrecting someone from the dead, now that makes you a god. Somehow don't think that Malik takes kindly to a mortal treading on his territory. Add that to the list of sus things that may come up in Onyx Storm. Violet's like, thank you for answering my questions. She like starts heading out and he's like, Violet, I taught both of your siblings. A signet like mine is too useful in the classroom to let me deploy with a wing for long. Brennan was a spectacular rider and a good man. Mira is shrewd and gifted in the seat when it comes to writing. Violet's like, tell me something I don't know. He says, but you're smarter than both of them. And from what I've seen of you helping your friends studying commons every single night, it seems you might be more compassionate too. Don't forget that. And she says, thanks. Being smart and compassionate is not going to help me when it comes to threshing. You know more about dragons than anyone else in the quadrant, probably anyone else on the continent. They choose strength and shrewdness And he says, they choose for reasons they don't see fit to share with us. And not all strength is physical, Violet. King Kaori, for real. Love him. Good guy. Now they're in Immaterio's class, and it's time for Violet's challenge with Orin. Dane says, he's going to try to kill you. And Violet's like, what? He's like, I overheard them talking. Like, they're all talking about how they want to weed the weakest out in here, that you're a liability to the wing because you're so frail and fragile. Jack says, I hope you win today's challenge, Violet. It would be a shame if someone killed you before I got the chance to, you know? Violets are just so fragile. God, you know, they never miss an opportunity to remind you that she is weak and frail and fragile. She unsheathes both of her daggers and throws them right at his head, like Z-Daddy told her to. She did not listen to Dane. She listened to Xaden. And fear widens in Jack's eyes. Dane is like, what the hell was that? I told you to lay low when it comes to him. And then you just piss him off even more. Violet's like, laying low isn't getting me anywhere. He thinks I'm a liability to the wing. I need to prove to him that I'm not. There's no ignoring the prickling at my scalp, and I let my gaze shift to meet Xaden's. My heart does that damn stuttering thing again, as if he'd sent shadows straight through my ribs to squeeze the organ. What is that sentence? He lifts his scarred brow, and I swear there's a hint of smile at his lips as he leaves, walking over to observe the Fourth Wing cadets at the next mat. And then Immaterio says, Sorengale Seifert, which is Orin's last name. Violet says, swallowing back the panic that threatens to creep up my throat, I step onto the mat opposite Orin, who's looking green now. Right on time. He looks like he's about to hurl, okay? So she like gets him on his ass really quick, and she's like, yield. And he's like, no. And then he pukes everywhere. Rhiannon's like, oh my gods. And then Professor Immaterio's like, he yields. Disgusting. She also picks up the dagger that Orin dropped while they were fighting, and she gets to keep it now. So that's pretty sick. So anytime you like earn a dagger in a challenge, you get to keep it, and that's yours. And then Violet's like, I won. She's like, get like me, bitches. Y'all wish you had a poison book like me, you know? So she's feeling good, but she's kind of like, ugh. Timing is going to be the hardest part of this. Like, I have to make sure I poison them correctly and on time. So, do you think that's going to come up later? Do you guys think that's going to bite her in the ass later? 6 weeks pass, and she has just poisoned the shit out of all of her opponents every time. So she's supposed to fight this girl from Third Wing, but she doesn't step forward like she's supposed to. And Immaterio says, sorry, Violet. You were supposed to challenge Rayma, but she's been taken to the healers because she can't seem to walk in a straight line. She's like, should I just like go tomorrow? Like go next week, you know, just sit this one out? And someone says, I'm happy to step in. Immaterio says, are you sure? Absolutely. My stomach hits the floor, and Xaden walks onto the mat. Professor Immaterio says, you all are in for a treat. Xaden is one of our best fighters. And she's like, of course you are. Of course you're the best fucking fighter. And Dane says, a little out of her league, don't you think? Relax, Atos. She'll be in one piece when I'm finished teaching her. Xaden fires back as he moves to the side, discarding every weapon on his body, and there's a lot of them, and handing them to Imogen. The bitter, illogical taste of jealousy fills my mouth, but there's no time to examine that particular oddity, not when there's only seconds before he's in front of me again. She's kind of offended that he doesn't need a single weapon. She's like, you don't think you'll need those? He's like, nope, not when you brought enough for both of us. She's got like 10 daggers on her, okay? Like, that is so funny. Make fun of her. And he's like, let's go. And she flings a dagger right at his chest, his ridiculously well-sculpted chest. He says, already seen that move. Obsessed. Holy shit, is he fast? She says, I have to be faster. That's the only advantage I have. That's my only thought as I move forward in a swipe and kick combo Rhiannon's drilled into me over the past 6 weeks. He artfully dodges my blade and then captures my leg. The earth spins and I slam onto my back, the sudden impact driving the air from my lungs. But he doesn't go for the kill. Huh? Instead, he drops the dagger he's caught and kicks it off the mat, leaning down so his face is only inches from mine. Going for blood today, are we, Violence? The first instance of Violet's nickname. And she's like, my name is Violet. And he's like, I think my version fits you better. He offers his hand to like pick her up, but then he uses it to his advantage and then pins her. He's like here, you know, and she's here. And so he like leans into her ear and he's like, do not trust a single person who faces you on this mat. And she turns around and tries to punch his throat, but obviously he deflects it. And he's like, good. Going for the throat is your best option as long as it's exposed. And she is just pissed off that he's schooling her. And he's like, I expect you to learn from your mistakes, because she keeps trying the same move. And then he says, are you going to prance or are you going to strike? And he says, taking out your enemy before the battle is really smart. I'll give that to you. Problem is, if you aren't testing yourself in here, then you're not going to get any better. Violet's like, you'd rather I die, no doubt. And he's like, and be denied the pleasure of your company? And then she says, I fucking hate you. And he says, that doesn't make you special. I love that response. He is cool as a cucumber. And she's all fired up. He holds his hand out to her for a second time, and she doesn't take it. And he's like, she can be taught. And Violet's like, she's a quick learner. And he's like, that remains to be seen. And she says, you made your damn point. She's pissed. She yells it out. And Imogen gasps. She's like, because she thinks that Xaden is going to go crazy and like murder her now because Violet like talked back. And he says, trust me, I've barely gotten started. So now he's on top of her, but she's straddling him, which I don't know how that position occurred, but that's what's happening. And she says, I can make out every speck of gold in his onyx eyes, every bump and ridge of his scar. Beautiful fucking asshole. God, I don't want to say this. Ugh, my breath catches and my body warms. The traitorous bitch. You are not attracted to toxic men, I remind myself. Ugh, I hate it. I hate it so much. Get your dagger, he orders. What? Get your dagger. You're tiny. And she's like, well aware. He's like, so stop going for bigger moves that expose you. You can't poison every enemy you come across. You're not going to have time to offer tea to some bravey griffin rider when they come at you. And she's like, how did you know? And he says, oh, Violence, you're good, but I've known better poison masters. The trick is not to make it quite so obvious. And Dane's like, I think she's been taught enough for the day. Is he always that overprotective? She's like, he cares about me. But Xaden's like, he's holding you back. Don't worry, your little poisoning secret is safe with me. He guides our hands back to my ribs and slides the ruby-hilted blade back into its sheath. The move is unnervingly hot. Fuck, I hate this. Oh, she says, you're not gonna disarm me? Nope, defenseless women have never been my type. We're done for today. Pure relief in Dane's eyes when I reach his side to retrieve the dagger Xaden took from me. You all right? I nod, my fingers trembling as I rearm myself. He's had every chance, every reason to kill me, and now he's let me walk away twice. What kind of game is he playing? Atos, Xaden calls out from across the mat. She could use a little less protection and a little more instruction. Xaden stares Dane down until he nods. Dane talks to Violet after this, and he's like, look, Markham said he'd still take you. So, if you want to go to the scribe quadrant, you still have the opportunity to. And she says, you went behind my back because you think I'm not cutting it. Ooh, shots fired at Dane. Dane knows me better than anyone, and if he still thinks I can't do this after I've made it this far, tears well in my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. Dane says, I never said I don't think you can cut it, Violet. And she says, you say it every day. You say it when you walk me from formation to class, which I know makes you late for Flightline. You say it when you yell at your wing leader when he takes me to the mat. He had no right to. And she's like, he's my wing leader. He can do whatever he wants, including execute me. And he's like, and that's why you need to get out of here. I've been watching, Vi. He's just toying with you like a cat plays with a mouse before the kill. Do you know what happens at threshing? While the riders are watching, the first years are taking out their vendettas and eliminating any liabilities to the wing. So he just called her a liability to the wing. Obviously, that's not good. While the first years, like Barlow and Seifert, are hunting you, we will have to watch the second and third years. And he says, we are not allowed to help you, Violet. I can't save you. And he says, Markham said that he will put you through the first year without telling your mother. By the time she finds out, you'll already be inducted as a scribe and there's nothing she can do about it. Please, if you won't do it for yourself, do it for me. Again, he says this bullshit again. He's like, just promise me you'll think about it. She's like, okay, I'll like think about it. Shit, just fuck off. I'm so sorry, but I have to sit down. My back may break off. All right, so we've gotten to the gauntlet part of the book. And gauntlet is like this Donkey Kong ass course that's like vertical, like you know, jump over the barrels, you run on top of the barrels. I'll post a little picture here of what it's supposed to look like. The gauntlet is Orly's, like, that's her shit. Orly's dad, who was a writer until he retired, used to set up obstacle courses like this all the time so he could practice. And Chase, my brother, said it's the best part of being here before threshing. It's a real adrenaline rush. The gauntlet is scored as a squad, and then it dictates who goes first in presentation. So I guess the dragons know that the first is the best. Like the first squad is the best, and then the last is like the worst. But Sawyer, since this is his like first year, he has already been through the gauntlet, and he said, honestly, timing doesn't mean shit. Fourth Wing, second squad, is the only squad to remain intact since Parapet. That's pretty impressive. Tynan is like, Atos is especially proud of Sorengale. Sawyer's like, Tynan, knock it off. And he's like, it doesn't bother any of you that our squad leader is fucking one of us? And Violet is like, I am not. And then she's like, honestly, it's none of your business who I'm fucking, Tynan. But in her mind, she's like, if I'm gonna get accused, can I at least like have some perks, please? Like, can I at least be actually fucking Dane if like I'm gonna get accused of it? Like, shouldn't I just do it anyways? And she's like, but if I know Dane, he's hung up on the whole fraternization is discouraged within the chain of command thing, like this asshole. But surely Dane would make a move if he actually wanted to, right? And Rhiannon is like, for fuck's sake, Luca, Tynan, shut up. They're not sleeping together. They've been friends since they were kids. Do you not know enough about our own leadership to know that his dad is her mom's aide? Tynan's eyes widen because he's a fucking idiot. Look at him. He's like, shit, I'm sorry. Barlow said. And Riddick is like, that's your first mistake. Okay, Riddick. Listening to that sadistic ass is going to get you killed, and you're lucky Atos isn't here. She's like, if Xaden were here, he would have just beat your ass. And then she's like, why did I just think of Xaden? Sawyer tells us that there are ropes every 6 feet or so. So if you're ever in need of a rope, it's going to cost you time, but it'll save your life. Professor Immaterio explains to us that every little obstacle that is in the gauntlet is designed to mimic the challenge that you'll face in battle, the balance you must keep on the back of your dragon, to the strength you'll need to hold your seat during maneuvers, to the stamina you'll need to fight on the ground, and then still be able to mount your dragon at a second's notice. So there is a purpose to the gauntlet. It's not just like an obstacle course to kill people. Sawyer goes first because he's done this before. And he is really fucking good at this. And yeah, so he finishes. No problem. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but every time Violet gets in like a really stressful situation, she starts reciting facts. It's just like some little lore drops for us. Her lore drops during her doing the gauntlet practice are, Feathertails are the breed we know the least about. This is because Feathertails reportedly abhor violence and are not suitable for bonding. We learn that orange dragons are kind of the most unhinged of all dragon colors, so do with that what you will. Everybody in the whole squad is gone. Violet's in the middle of going, and Orly's like right behind Violet, and a green daggertail like flies over them while they're doing this course. And Orly gets distracted. She gets crushed, I think, in between the barrels. And then she like falls. Rip Orly. The next morning, whenever the death roll is called, Violet sheds a tear as Orly's name is called. A little world building for you. We find out that every Basgiath parent has the same option where their cadet is killed. They can retrieve the body in personal effects and then like burn/bury them themselves, or the school will put their body under a stone and burn their effects themselves. And Orly's parents have chosen door number 2. I guess since Orly's dad and brother are both writers, that they were just kind of like, Orly is a disgrace to this family. Do parents not love their kids in this book? Like, what? Okay, so Violet decides that she's going to burn Orly's things for her. she's kind of grappling with the fact that she's even alive. She's kind of like, do I even deserve to live? If any of us should have made it, Orly should have. Damn, should I go to the Scribe Quadrant? But whenever she considers going to the Scribe Quadrant, she like hates it. And this is kind of making her rethink everything she's ever thought about herself, because her whole life she's been taught by her dad, wanted to be a scribe, and so now her dream is changing. She burns Orly's things, and she's like leaving the burn pit area, and she sees 3 dragons in the distance, and then 3 riders walking around, and guess who it is? It is Xaden, Garrick, and Bodhi. Violet, she starts hiding in the shadows nearby because she's trying to overhear their conversation. She wants to know where they were at because it's really late in the night, and she's like, nobody should be like coming back from anything, so where were they? She overhears them whispering about how they're doing everything they can. Like, doing everything you can for what? It's a little sus. Xaden, he stops in his tracks because he senses Violet lingering in the shadows. And so Xaden is like, you guys go on inside. I'm gonna wait here. They're kind of like, okay, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, go on. You know, they have their usual like little banter, and he's like, what are you doing out here? And she's like, I could ask you the same question. But she says, I'm debating running away. And he's like, same. And then we get this question again from Violet. She's like, are you going to kill me or not? I'm sick of all this waiting, you know? If you're going to kill me, just get it over with. I'm sick of this. I'm just trying to figure out like what my chances are here. And he's like, oh, your chances with me? And she's like, no, my chances of surviving at this school, Xaden, get it together. She says, I can't make it up the gauntlet. So should I just leave and go to the scribes? Or should I stay and try my best? And he's like, I see your dilemma now. And she's like, you don't see. You're probably happy that I can't get up the gauntlet, so the gauntlet will kill me and it won't be any trouble. And he's like, trust me, the trouble is not killing you. The trouble is leaving you alive. And she's like, well, sorry for all the trouble I'm causing you in your mind. Xaden says, hope is dangerous. It steals your focus and makes you focus on the possibilities instead of the probabilities. If you quit being a head ass, you'd realize that you have everything you need to scale the gauntlet. And she's like, what the fuck does that mean? We get a little Xaden quote here also. He says, people die. It's going to happen over and over again. It's the nature of what happens here. What makes you a writer is what you do after people die. You want to know why you're still alive? Because you're the scale I currently judge myself against every night. Every day I let you live, I get to convince myself that there's still a part of me that's a decent person. So if you want to quit, then please spare me the temptation and fucking quit. And she's like, I'm too short to span the distance. And he's like, the right way isn't the only way. Figure it out. And she says in her mind, fuck him. Again, she loves to say that. She loves to say fuck, period, him, period. And she also loves to say arrogant ass. Those are Violet's catchphrases towards Xaden. All right, fast forward a couple of weeks, and now they're at presentation day. And Violet has still not been able to make it up the gauntlet. They've tried like 10 times. She still can't do it. So it's go time. Presentation day equals final gauntlet day plus the like you are being presented to the dragons for like your little interview type thing. As they're walking to the final gauntlet, Dain comes up to her again and tries to get her to go to the Scribe Quadrant. He's like particularly anxious about it this day because they're going to be presented to the dragons, and Dain thinks Violet is too weak and frail and that the dragons will incinerate her. And she's like, would you leave to go to the Scribe Quadrant? And he's like, no, I'm a writer. And she's like, well, what if I am too? Period. He's like, Violet, what's changed? And she's like, me. Ugh, I have cringe chills. Okay, so everybody makes it to the gauntlet. Violet, I think, is the last to go. And she gets to the chimney, and there are ropes every 6 feet. So she pulls one of the ropes into the chimney shaft. I don't know the right way to describe this, but I'll put a picture here. So she's doing this. And so she's ripping her hands up because this rope, she's getting like extreme rope burn. And so she makes it to the top. Great. She did it. She made her way up the chimney. But wait, there's this final part of the gauntlet that she hasn't even had the chance to practice because she's never made it up the chimney before. She's got another trick up her sleeve for that. And so she unsheathes one of her daggers and she takes like a running start And then once she gets to the top, as far as she can reach, she like stabs her dagger into the rock. So she like pulls herself up, and then she's made it. Woo! Everybody's cheering. Her squad's cheering. But wait. Remember Amber Mavis, Dane's supposed previous fling? She is pissed, and she's like, you can't do that. She cheated. She says, a rider may only bring to the quadrant the items they can carry. And she's like, are you quoting the codex to me? A rider may only bring to the quadrant the items they can carry, and they shall not be separated from those items no matter what they may be. For once carried across the parapet, they are considered part of their person. Article 3, Section 6, Addendum B. So she schools Amber, literally. The dagger she used to pull herself up was a dagger that she brought across the parapet, so it is considered a part of her person, so she can technically use it. And then Xaden's like, sorry, Amber, she's got ya. And now they're lining up for presentation, because I guess after you do the final gauntlet, you immediately go to the flight field. It's a human parade for the dragons. Garrick tells them, make sure that you stand 7 feet apart from one another, so in case one of the dragons doesn't like you and they want to incinerate you, you don't get incinerated also. So like, give yourself a wide berth. Turns out also that there is a feather-tailed dragon here at presentation. They're like, what the fuck? Because a feathertail is essentially like a tiny ass dragon. They can't carry a rider, and they are known to be pretty submissive, and they don't fight in battle. But Garrick is like, oh my god, guys, just relax. It's probably just curious. They normally don't bond anyways, so just ignore it. He also tells them that they need to make sure that they kind of keep a conversation as they're walking in front of the dragons, because the dragons like to get a sense of their personality, how they interact with others. So they're walking, they're talking, they're all really nervous. Violet is like making small talk with Rhiannon. She's like, hey, do you know what your niece or nephew, like, do you know if it's going to be a boy or a girl? Because Rhiannon's sister is pregnant. And Rhiannon's like, no, I wish we could talk to our families in here. And Violet's like, yeah, I agree. It's a stupid fucking rule, because they can't correspond with friends or family outside of the quadrant. Rhiannon is kind of like, why didn't you tell me about your plan with the gauntlet? And Violet's like, I just didn't want you to be an accomplice. I didn't want to get in trouble and then you get dragged into it also. And Rhiannon's like, I don't care. Just tell me. We're friends. That's what friends are for. What other secrets are you keeping from me? And Violet is feeling a little guilty because she still hasn't told anybody about Xaden's whole club meeting thing. So she just feels guilty for keeping secrets from Rhiannon, which is going to be a problem, obviously, in the future. So they reach the Feathertail, and oh my god, it is so cute. It's a little golden dragon, and it's like a little puppy compared to the other dragons. So of course Tynan and Luca are being fucking rude per usual. They're like, that thing's a little freak. Sorengale, you should bond that dragon because it's small and fragile and weak. Rhiannon is like, maybe it's a baby? And Violet's like, nah, bruh. They don't let babies bond, let alone come to presentation. Like, I don't think anybody's ever even seen a baby because they like protect them. She's like, that is a full-grown dragon, that tiny boy. Tynan is like, someone should kill it before it bonds. Tynan, shut up. Oh my god. Do you think the dragons are going to stand for that? You think the dragons are going to be like cool with threats against their kind? Anyways, they're arguing and Violet is trying to diffuse the situation because she's trying to like make a good impression for the dragons, obviously. And so she's like, ha ha ha, at least we're not, you know, being presented in front of wyverns. And Rhiannon's like, ha ha ha, so true. And then Luca's like, what the fuck is a wyvern? And Violet's like, oh, your parents never told you like little fables, like little folk tales about the wyvern and the venin? We get a little description of the wyverns also. She says that they're kind of like dragons, but bigger. Oh shit, they're bigger than dragons? And they have 2 feet instead of 4. And a mane of razor sharp feathers streaking down their necks and a taste for humans. Unlike dragons who think that humans are a little gamey. Rhiannon says that her mom used to love telling her sister and her that we'd be plucked right off the front porch by one if we talked back, and their eerie-eyed venin riders would take us prisoner if we took treats we weren't allowed to have. And Rhiannon's like, did your dad tell you that people supposedly only turn venin if they channel directly from the source? And she's like, he did, but only after my mom came back after a long shift and her eyes were bloodshot and she was like freaking out. And Luca was like, that sounds like some border village nonsense. Because I guess Luca is like a city girl. Whatever. She looks down on the country folk. Pryor, his one personality trait is that he's indecisive. So he's being his normal self. He's like, should we slow down? Should we go faster? And then a red scorpion tail steps up and incinerates Pryor. Rip Pryor. Okay, we're losing a lot of the squad here. And so they're like, do we just step on his ashes? Huh? So they like walk around it a little bit, but then it's just like, oh, that's where Pryor was. And now it's just a little scorch mark on the ground. They're a little worked up now. As they're walking, a green dragon steps up to Violet. And everybody's like, Violet, there's a green dragon behind you. And the green dragon is like kind of sniffing Violet, okay? She's like doing all the things that the green dragons like. They don't like eye contact, But then she realizes that the green dragon is probably just smelling her dragon armor. She just talks to him and she's like, oh, do you smell Tyne? Which is Mirror's dragon. So she's like, yeah, it's his scales. And then the dragon's like, cool. And then it walks away. And then they're like, phew. Luca, she's just continuing to be fucking annoying about the whole Pryor situation. Another dragon steps up and incinerates Luca. And then Riddick says, I guess the dragons thought she was insufferable too. We love Riddick. So their squad is now down to 6 first years, which includes Riddick, Violet, Sawyer, Rhiannon, Tynan, and then a girl named Trina. I don't think I've mentioned her, but she's not important. All right, boys and girls, it's threshing time. Woo! The moment you've all been waiting for. This is the best part of the book. Before they start threshing, Kaori tells them that if a dragon has chosen them from presentation, that they'll like have a little gut feeling. They'll just know. I like that. Violet, though, she does not have that feeling. She's kind of wandering around aimlessly. She comes across a red scorpion tail and she's like, I just know that dragon isn't mine. So she decides to climb a tree. She's like, maybe I'll have a little feeling if I can see all the dragons. But when she's in her tree, she sees this squad. They're talking about killing that golden dragon. I guess they're not coming after Violet, so that's good, but still not your best judgment, guys, for real. Around all the big dragons, that just is so stupid. I genuinely do not understand why they think that the other dragons would be cool with that. So she's still up in her tree, and she looks over and she spots the golden dragon. She's like, I need to get down, get over there, warn that dragon to get out of here because they're coming to hunt it. So Violet, she's climbing down the tree and she's sprinting to this dragon. And as she's sprinting, she trips and fucks up her ankle. But she does get to the golden dragon before they show up. She's like, shoo, go on, get out of here. She's like, they're coming to kill you. So like, come on, fly away. The dragon is just kind of like, I'm just having a good time. Violet's like, oh my God, I swear to God, please leave. They are literally coming to murder you. If you value your life at all, get out of here. But the dragon, she's J-chillin'. Oh no, Jack and Co. have shown up. And now they're like, oh, great. We can weed out both of the weaklings at once. Amazing. It's my lucky day. And then a voice comes from across the field and says, I would highly recommend that you rethink your actions. And it is, you guessed it, Xaden and Sigale. They both shown up. Violet says that she can tell that Sigale is pissed about this whole them trying to kill the dragon thing, but they're obviously not receiving the message. And Violet, she's happy as fuck to see Xaden. She's like, hopefully Sigale won't tolerate this shit and she'll put an end to it. Violet's like, hello, little golden dragon. Can I get some help here? You know, you got teeth, you got claws. And she looks down at his claws and she's like, oh my God, you literally have paws. You don't even have claws yet. So she's like, oh my God, you're literally defenseless. Jack charges towards Violet. Violet slashes his shoulder and he's like, fuck. And then she flings the dagger at Tynan's thigh and it's enough to slow him down, but not enough. And then Oren charges at her and she takes a slice at his ribs and he tries to slice her rib right back, but obviously her dragon armor deflects it. He's like, what the hell? How come I didn't slice you? How has word not got around about Violet's armor? Anyways, Jack runs away because he knows he's got no skin in this game with his fucked up shoulder. So he's like, I gotta get out of here. I value my life. GGG. And so Violet is just slicing up Tynan. She's going to town, and Xaden yells, "Behind you!" And so she turns just in time because Orin is about to decapitate her. And the golden dragon snaps at Orin. She didn't know it had teeth. He didn't know it had teeth. So he's a little taken aback by this. And this is just enough time for Violet to knock Orin unconscious with like the handle of her dagger. So he's unconscious. Tynan is getting sliced up currently, and Jack has fled the scene. So Violet's talking to Tynan, and she's like, "I know exactly where I sliced you. If you don't get to a healer soon, you're gonna bleed out." And that pisses Tynan off even more. He gets more angry. And so Violet's like, "Ee!" And then she throws her dagger at Tynan, but her hand is all bloody, and so the dagger slips from her hand and falls into the grass like beside Tynan. Tynan is all pissy with Xaden, and he's like, "You can't interfere." He's like, "Hey, I'm just narrating." Tynan is now making his way towards Violet. She's making peace, coming to terms with her imminent death. She's like, "Well, at least I made Jack run away. You know, that's got to count for something." And right before Tynan slices Violet, Violet sees out of the corner of her eye that Xaden takes a step forward. And she's kind of like, "Interesting. Are you going to save me, Xaden? Are you going to save me?" A gust of wind slams into Violet's back, and Tynan is like, "Here we go, guys." Standing with the golden one tucked under an enormous scarred black wing is the biggest dragon I've ever seen in my life. The unbonded black dragon Professor Kaori showed us in class. I don't even come close to reaching its ankle. A growl resonates through its chest, vibrating the ground beneath me as it lowers its gigantic head, bearing dripping teeth. Fear ripples through every cell in my body as its hot breath blows over me. "Step aside, Silver One." A deep, gruff, definitely male voice orders. I blink. Wait, what? Did he just speak to me? "Yes, you. Move." And I limp to the side, nearly stumbling over Orin's unconscious body. As Tynan breaks into a screaming run, fleeing for the trees. The black dragon's eyes narrow to glare at Tynan as he opens his mouth wide a second before fire shoots across the field, blasting heat against the side of my face and incinerating everything in its path, including Tynan. Wow. Hell yeah. Piss off, Tynan. You're so annoying. Flames crackle at the edges of the blackened path, and I turn slowly to face the dragon, wondering if I'm about to be next. His giant golden eyes study me, but I hold my ground, tilting my chin upward. The dragon says, "You should end the enemy at your feet." And she's like, "I don't really wanna. Like, he's unconscious. That's kind of shitty of me." And the black dragon's like, "He would kill you if he had the chance." And she's like, "Well, I guess that says more about his character than mine. I'm just better than him, I guess." In the corner of her eye, she sees Xaden and Sigale like fly off. And she's like, "Well, there goes his momentary care for my life." And the black dragon's like, "You're bleeding. Stop it." And she's like, "It's not that simple when you've been run through with and she's like, "Wait, why the fuck am I arguing with this dragon? Okay, I'm just gonna like grab my arm." And then she's like, "There, better?" And it's like, "It will do. Your hands are bound too from the rope from Gauntlet." And he's like, "Do you bleed often?" And she's like, "I try not to, but like, shit, give me a break here." And he says, "Let's go, Violet Sorrengail." She's like, "How do you know my name?" And he's like, "And to think, I almost forgot how fucking stupid humans were. Get on my back." And she's like, "Oh my god, wait, he's choosing me." That's crazy. And she's like, "Get on your back. Have you seen you? Like, you're huge." And he's like, "One does not live for 100 goddamn years and not know the amount of space that they take up." And she's like, "I can't just leave this golden dragon. Like, what if Warren wakes up and then wants to kill it?" And then the golden one flies away. And she's like, "Good. Glad to know you could always do that. Thanks." And he's like, "Get on my back right now." And she's like, "You don't want me. Like, I'm small, weak, fragile." And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you again. Oh my god. Get on my damn back. Violet, I swear to God." And so the dragon tells her his full name, which I don't know how to pronounce. So I'll put it on the screen. And we are introduced to Tairn. He's here. Woo! Can you see him? Great. And they take off. And then Violet falls off his back and is now in a free fall. But wait, Tairn does her a little favor and he catches her. He's like, "Oh, you're making us look bad. Stop. Just hold on." He's like, "You are a writer, aren't you?" She's like, "I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to live." Violet's back up and she looks over and she sees someone fall off the back of a red sword tail. And the dragon does not catch them. So she's like, "Ugh, I'm grateful that he caught me." And Taryn is like, "Look, I gotta make an entrance. I haven't been seen around here in like 5 years. So like, I'm not just gonna come in." He's like, "I gotta show off." So he's like, "I'm gonna help you keep your seat." I don't know physically how he does this, but he is able to keep Violet in her seat using his strength. Just let it happen. Violet, she's sitting, she's chilling. This is like the best time of her life. She's like, "Woo, I'm on a dragon. Yeah, I'm so happy and excited. And this is so fun and awesome. And look at me. I'm a writer now, bitches. Fuck all y'all. Whoever fucking doubted me. Dane, look at me now, bitch. Look at me now." Violet asks the question we all want to ask, which is, why did you pick me? It says, "Taryn is the most celebrated dragon in the Vale, and I'm the most unlikely rider in the quadrant." And Taryn says, "You're the smartest of your year, the most cunning. You defended the smallest with ferocity, and strength of courage is more important than physical strength, since you apparently need to know before we land." And she's kind of like, "Thank you, I'm proud of myself." Up until this point, Violet has been speaking out loud to this dragon, and the dragon's been talking in her mind. Violet realizes that she can talk back to the dragon in her mind. And he's like, "See, you are the smartest in your year. Look how quickly you figured that out." The golden dragon's still around. She's like tucked underneath Taryn's wing. And she's like, "I'm really glad that you made it. But maybe you should fly off next time someone suggests you save yourself, eh?" And she's like, "Maybe I was saving you." And she's like, "Didn't anyone tell you you're not supposed to speak to humans that aren't your rider? Don't go getting yourself in trouble, Goldie. From what I hear, dragons are pretty strict about that rule." A rider to Violet's right is like, "Holy shit. Is that?" And she's like, "Yeah, it is." Once you bond your dragon, you have to go up to the dais and tell the officials like the dragon's full name, because that is like secretive and it's to like prove that the dragon actually did bond you. All the officials are up there, including Violet's mom, and they're all like gawking at the sight of Taryn. They're like, "Is that?" And they're about to say his name, and her mom is like, "Let her say it. Make her say it. We need to make sure that she actually did bond this dragon." And Violet's like, "Oh my god, like somehow I could get this big ass dragon to tell me its name. Like, how would I do that? How would I manage to like hijack this dragon? But whatever, here's his name." And then the small golden dragon tells her its name, and it is Andarna. Woo, we love Andarna, okay? We love Taryn too, but we love Andarna. We love her. Violet's like, "Huh? What? And then Taryn's like, "Tell him her name." And she's like, and Andarna." And the officials are like, and then, quote, "all hell breaks loose." All the officers are like debating about whether or not Violet should be able to keep both of these dragons. Violet's with Kaori and he's wrapping up her leg. Violet's like, "Has anyone ever bonded 2 dragons before?" And he's like, "You would be the first, but I don't know why they got their panties in a twist, because it's not like they really have any say." Jack comes up and he is utterly pissed that Violet bonded the black dragon, because remember, he wanted that thing. But Jack has bonded a dragon also, and it's an orange dragon named Bade. Remember what I said when orange dragons are the most unhinged? Fitting that Jack would have an orange dragon. Taryn and Andarna have to go fly away along with all the other dragons to the Vale to meet with the Empyrean, which is like the Council of Dragons. It is also coincidentally the name of this series. But before they leave, Taryn says, "Make sure you stay with the wing leader." And she's like, "Surely he meant the squad leader." He's like, "You heard what I said. Wing leader." So that's some like little Sarah J Maas shit right there. Everyone bonds a dragon in Violet's squad except Tynan, because he's dead, and Trina. Sawyer saw Trina fall off an orange dragon as she was coming in. So Trina is also dead. Tynan dead. So here's our little squad. Rhiannon gets a green dragon called Fierg. I'm sorry. for all the pronunciations in this video. Mira's dragon is a green dragon. Remember when Violet said they're kind of similar? So the dragons must have thought so as well. Riddick, he gets a brown sword tail called Atrum. And Violet's mom also has a brown dragon. Sawyer gets a red sword tail called Sleeshag. So yay, they all have different colors of dragons. So fun. Dane finds Violet and he gives her a big ol' hug. And he is really happy that she, number one, is alive, and number two, that she bonded a dragon. Dane tells us that they're going to make Violet choose between Andarna and Tairn. And he's like, if they do, you have to pick Andarna. And she's like, I'm not fucking picking. And go away. You're pissing me off. Like, we are all tired of Dane's shit. He's like, they'll probably make you a permanent instructor here like Professor Kaori. And she's like, Kaori's signet is what makes him a permanent instructor. She's like, I don't even know what my signet's going to be yet. So I'm not just going to give up and be like, okay, here I am, a permanent instructor. Whatever. So annoying. Dane also tells us, even if you take Andarna into combat, there's only a chance you'll be killed. You take Tairn and Xaden will get you killed. You think Melgren's terrifying? I've been here for a year longer than you have, Vi. At least you know what you're getting when it comes to Melgren. Xaden isn't only twice as ruthless, but he's dangerously unpredictable. I blink. Wait, what are you saying? They're a mated pair, Tairn and Sigale, the strongest bonded pair in centuries. So notice they're next to each other. Violet is like, oh my god. Mated pairs can't be separated for long or their health diminishes. So they're always stationed together, always. Which means, oh god. Dane's like, just tell me how it happened. How it came to be that Tairn picked you. Xaden was there when you defended Andarna and then Tairn just showed up. She's like, yes, that's what I just said. What are you getting at? Don't you see what happened? What Xaden's done? And he grips Violet so tight that she's like, good thing I have this armor on because like he would be bruising me. Xaden steps out of the shadows, of course, and he's like, please do tell me what you think I've done. And Violet's like, wow, he's so hot. And Dane's like, you manipulated Threshing. And Violet's like, Dane, that's like... And Violet in her mind, she's like, if Xaden was going to kill me, he wouldn't have waited this long to do it. He's had every possible opportunity, and yet I'm still standing here, bonded to his dragon's mate. Like, Xaden is not going to kill me. Which makes her re-examine everything that happened in that field. Which makes her sense of gravity shift beneath her feet. And Xaden's like, is that an official accusation? And he's like, did you step in? He's like, did I what? Did I see her outnumbered and already wounded? Did I think her bravery was admirable as it was fucking reckless? And he's like staring at Violet. And she's like, and I would do it again. He's like, well the fuck aware. He's pissed. I just can't scream right now. Did I see her fight off 3 bigger cadets? Because the answer to all those questions is yes. But you're asking the wrong question, Atos. What you should be asking is if Sigale saw it too. Dane swallows and looks away, obviously rethinking his position. Violet whispers to Dane, she's like, his mate told him. And Xaden says, she's never been a fan of bullies. But don't mistake it as an act of kindness towards you, Violet. She's fond of the little dragon. Unfortunately, Tairn chose you all on his own. And Dane is like, fuck. And Xaden's like, my thought, exactly. Sorengale's the last person on the continent I'd ever want to be chained to me. And Violet's like, ouch. Fuck, like, why do you gotta be so mean? It can't be that bad. Am I that horrible? And Xaden's like, Xaden really schools Dane with this one. He says, even if I had stepped in, would you really level that accusation if it saved the woman you call your best friend? And Violet's kind of like, what's he gonna do? Dane's like, there are rules. And he's like, and out of curiosity, would you have, let's say, bent those rules to save your precious little Violet? And Violet is like, that's unfair to ask him. Oh, and then Xaden says, I'm ordering you to answer, squad leader, because he loves to pull rank on Dane. Dane closes his eyes and he's like, no, I wouldn't have. Dane, sucking the dick of the rules per fucking usual. This crushes Violet. She's like, wow, good to know. And Xaden's like, you're nothing. He just scoffs though. Dane turns to Violet. He's like, it would have killed me to see something happen to you, Vi. But the rules are rules. Violet's like, it's all right. And Xaden's like, the dragons are returning. Let's head back. Violet's a little pissed with Xaden because he made Dane answer that question. And she's like, why would you ask him that? And he's like, because you put too much faith in him. And knowing who to trust is the only thing that'll keep you alive. Keep us alive. Not only in the quadrant, but after graduation. She's like, there is no us. And he's like, I think you'll see that that is no longer the case, Violet. He tells us, Terran's bonds are so powerful, both to mate and rider, because he's so powerful. Losing his last rider nearly killed him, which in turn nearly killed Sigale. Mated pairs' lives are interdependent. Each time a dragon chooses a rider, the bond is stronger than the last, which means that if you die Violence, it sets off a chain of events that potentially ends with me dying too. So yeah, unfortunately for everyone involved, there isn't us. And Violet in her mind, she's like, oh gods, I'm tethered to Xaden Ryerson. Oh god. Which, okay, sorry. I love that. It's the perfect way to get the mate trope in there with them not having to call each other mate, because that is like horrible. I hate that. I love a mate trope, but when they call each other mate, disgusting. So this is a way to bypass that little hiccup. And I love that. And he's like, now that other cadets know that Terran is willing to bond, and Violet's piecing it together in her mind, she's like, that's why he told me to stay with you. And he's like, yeah, you're now going to be enemy number 1 to all 40 cadets that don't have a dragon, because they're going to kill you when your bond is the weakest and then hope that Terran picks one of them. So unfortunately, now I have to like protect you with my life, because if you die, I die. And Xaden's like, you're freakishly calm for someone who's about to be hunted. And she's like, well, it's not that much different than what I deal with in my day-to-day life. So the dragons are back, and we find out that they're going to let her keep both of them. Of course. The dragons give their relics to their riders, which is essentially like a tattoo, magical tattoo. It's like a physical manifestation of the bond, and that is how they channel powers to their riders. And so after that happens, everybody's like, woo! And then Dane runs to Violet and hugs her, and he's like, I'm so happy that you get to keep both of them, which is kind of like, really? Because you were just like fucking like telling her to only pick Andarna, but whatever. Dana's like, Violet, I hope you know how much I care about you. And Violet's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then Dane kisses Violet, and it says, his lips are soft, but the kiss is firm, and delight races up my spine. After years, Dane is finally kissing me. The thrill is gone in less than a heartbeat. There's no heat, no energy, no sharp slice of lust. Disappointment sours the moment, but not for Dane. He's all smiles as he pulls away. It was over in an instant. It was everything I've ever wanted, except shit. I don't want it anymore. Because she wants Xaden. Ooh, surprise. Surprise. Let's continue. So Violet and all of her buddies now have their own private rooms because they've bonded their dragons and they're officially riders. So woohoo. Violet comes out of her room and she sees Sawyer waltzing out of Rhiannon's room. And she's like, interesting. And he's like blushing. He's like, oh, hey, Violet. Violet goes to talk to Rhiannon and she's like, Sawyer, huh? And she's like, I felt like celebrating. She's like, don't you feel like celebrating with a certain squad leader that I saw you kissing yesterday? Violet's like, yeah, that kiss, mid as fuck. Nothing. No sparks there. No nothing. And Rhiannon's like, ugh. You hate to hear it, you know? You really do. Rhiannon and Violet walk to breakfast and like the whole power dynamic has shifted, okay? Jocks are sitting with nerds. Nerds are sitting with the jocks. Popular people sitting with unpopular people. Everything's changed now that people have their dragons. So now Violet, because she's bonded to Terran and Andarna, everybody wants to be Violet's friend. So in an unlikely change of events, Imogen now wants to be closer to Violet. Okay, because she's the cool girl. She's got 2 cool dragons. Today's their first day of flight lessons, and Violet can't eat anything at breakfast, because now that they're riders, they don't have to do like, they've like been alleviated of their lesser duties, I guess. So anyways, Violet doesn't have to do breakfast duty anymore, but now Orin is, because he is unbonded. And so she's like, I can't even eat breakfast because I don't know if Orin is poisoning it or what, you know? So she like only has some fruit. That's what she knows can't be tainted by poison. Imogen and Quinn, which is the other girl, she gives Violet some of their food. They're like, eat, you need your strength. So that's really nice of them. They also want to be in Violet's good graces because she's bonded the biggest dragon. So that kind of means that Violet's going to be the most powerful rider. In addition to her giving her food away, Imogen has also decided that she is going to start training Violet for sparring. So that's crazy. So Imogen, who once broke Violet's arm, is now going to teach her how to break other people's arms. But then Violet realizes quickly that this is probably because Xaden told her to. She's like, he's just looking out for himself, which I get it. And Violet locks eyes with Xaden across the room, and they have a little moment. All right, they're in their first flight class now, and we get word that this is the smallest class of riders to date, with only 92 riders total. There's nothing really about that. I just thought it was worth mentioning. They need to all mount their dragons, okay? And Violet's having a hard time because remember how big Taryn is? She doesn't even come to his ankle. So she is needing some assistance. Taryn is like leaning down, I guess, to help Violet get up on him. And she's like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Like, that you have to do this for me. And he's like, if anything, I'm doing it for me. I saw your whole thing at the gauntlet where you stuck the dagger in the rock, that's supposed to be them mounting their dragon. Dragons can read their previous memories too, I guess. Interesting. Anyway, so Taryn's like, look, this is more for me than it is for you. I'm not trying to have you stab a dagger in my side just to ride me, please. They're flying, Violet's falling, Taryn is catching her, yada yada. Later, whenever Violet's on her way to the sparring gym with Imogen, Dane finds her and he's like, hey Violet, like, can we talk about yesterday? And she's like, sure, I guess. And he's like, that kiss was a mistake. And she's like, oh, thank God. Whew. And he's like, yeah, because, it's just not appropriate because I'm your superior officer. And Violet's like, whatever, I don't even fucking care. Like, as long as I don't have to kiss you anymore. So she's sparring with Imogen and she's like, she must be really loyal to Xaden if she's willing to help train me to fight. That kind of loyalty could only possibly stem from love and attraction between the two of them. So she's a little jealous of Imogen and Xaden. So whatever, Violet. So now that Violet has her dragon, she has the upgraded chores. So now she's on archives duty. Obviously, she loves this. And we meet her scribe buddy, Jesinia, because she is like a scribe cadet. And Violet used to study with Jesinia, so they've known each other for a few years now. And Violet asked Jesinia if she can find her a copy of the Fables of the Baron. You remember the book that she was referencing earlier about the book that her dad read to her? And Jesinia is like, yeah, let me go check. And Jesinia comes back and she's like, hey, Violet, I checked and we don't have that here. And Violet's like, that's a little weird. Jesinia is like, yeah, you said like it has Venin and Wyvern. She was like, I looked up both of those names and nothing came up either. And Violet's like, the only books that aren't in the archives are either like rare or forbidden. So I don't know why they wouldn't have this little like children's folklore book, but all right. Thanks for looking, Jesinia. Later, when Violet's back with her squad, they find out that Sawyer's signet has already manifested, which is crazy. That means that he would have had to start channeling and manifesting a signet like at about the same time. So that's kind of crazy, but keep in mind, this is his first year. So I guess the dragon was like, okay, you're ready. Take it. Take your power. So the dragon decides when to channel power to you, but then the signet is more based on the rider. You don't have to be ready for the dragon to start channeling magic to you, but you do have to be ready to start to manifest your signet. Oh, sorry. Forgot to mention that Sawyer's signet is metallurgy. So he can manipulate metal, anything metal. So he was talking about how it's annoying that he can't eat with forks. He's got to use like a plastic fork. So if you don't manifest your signet within 6 months-ish, you can die. And that's the burnout that I was talking about earlier, I think. I think I mentioned that. If I didn't, burning out is essentially like when the power consumes you because it has no outlet. Violet gets some more flight lessons. She still can't keep her seat. Taryn is still catching her. And she's just like defeated because she's like, oh my God, I'm not strong enough. And this sucks. And it's embarrassing. After they're done with their little fight lesson, Dane comes over and he's like, oh my God, Violet, why didn't you tell me you couldn't keep your seat? Like, oh, Dane, shut up. He's mad at Violet because she can't keep her seat. And it's like dangerous. I also just want to mention that this whole time since she's gotten her dragon, Taryn and Andarna, she's been able to talk to them in her mind. So I just haven't been reading it off because none of it's really like essential to the story. But just know that she's like strengthening her bond with Taryn and Andarna, and they're like speaking a lot to each other. And Taryn is like obviously sassy, and Andarna is like a sweet angel baby. Okay, so after Dane is like, oh my God, Violet, why can't you keep your seat? Violet says, let's get one thing straight, Dane. The reason we'll never be anything more than friends isn't because of your rules. It's because you have no faith in me. Even now, when I've survived against all odds and bonded not one, but 2 dragons, you still think I won't make it. So forgive me, but you're about to be some of the bullshit that this place cuts away from me. Honestly, pop off, Violet. Tell him what's up. She sees Xaden over in the corner, and she's like just in a pissy mood, and she just like flips him off and keeps walking. And then Rhiannon's like, oh my God, are you okay? And then somebody starts screaming in the courtyard. And they're like, make it stop now. Make it stop. Somebody says, Jeremiah. Jeremiah turns around and he's like, you think I've lost it, don't you? How does he know? He shouldn't know. And you, what the hell is wrong with him? Why is he screaming? And then he turns to Dane and he's like, is Violet gonna hate me forever? Why can't she just see that I just want to keep her alive? How is he? He's reading my thoughts. And then Violet's like, oh my God, who cares if people know Dane is thinking about me? Jeremiah's signet power is manifesting. He can read minds. And intrinsic. His power is a death sentence. Violet tells Xaden to like do something. And he's like, start reciting whatever bookish shit you've got in your mind, okay? Unless you want people to know your damn secrets. And she's like, oh, okay. And then Jeremiah looks at Garrick and he's like, damn it all to hell. He'll know about. Like he's saying everyone's thoughts back to them. For us. So what is Garrick hiding? What is Jeremiah gonna find out by reading Garrick's mind, you ask? Then a professor grabs Jeremiah's head and then snaps his neck in the courtyard in front of everybody. And then Riddick is like, maybe I don't want a signet power after all. He's like, maybe I'm grateful it hasn't manifested yet. The professor that just snapped Jeremiah's neck is Professor Carr, okay? I have him as the dad in Umbrella Academy because he is very unemotional, also very logical, to the point, straightforward. Yeah, he's not one for niceties, so. And he's old, I think, so great. Later that night, after Jeremiah's killed, Violet is snoozing away. She's dreaming, and she's like having a dream about her dad, and then Taryn in her mind is like, wake up now. And so she does. And then she finds 7 people in her room with weapons. One of them runs out of the room. She's like, how the fuck did they get in my room? And then one of them runs out of her room and she's like, because she knew who they were. So 6 others are standing around ready to kill Violet. And one of them is Oren. The others she doesn't know. She starts fighting him off somewhat poorly. They get like a couple they try to slice her again in the ribs. And of course she still is wearing her dragon scale armor. So nothing happens. And Oren is like, I told you she had some fucking witchcraft ass armor on. They kind of beat her up a little bit. And Oren starts choking Violet with his bare hands. Not good. And Violet's like struggling to get out of his grasp, you know. One of the other 5, they're like, finish her off. He won't respect us if we don't kill her. And they're talking about Taryn. So they're trying to get to Taryn, obviously. And Oren releases his grip on Violet's neck just enough to whip out his dagger. And then the tip of his dagger is at her neck. And then time stops. Everything in the room is frozen. And Violet is like, am I dead? And then Andarna talks to her in her mind and she's like, move, come on. Like, I'm stopping time, bitch. Get a move on, please. And so Violet is like, oh my God, this is crazy. She gets away from Oren and then Andarna resumes time again. And now Xaden is in her bedroom doorway. And they're kind of like, holy fuck, how did she get over there so fast? It says, Xaden fills the doorway like some kind of dark, avenging angel, the messenger of the queen of the gods. He's fully dressed, his face a mask of veritable rage as shadows curl from the walls on either side of him, hanging in midair. That's kind of cool. And Taryn is like, it's about damn time he showed up. I've been telling him to get his ass over here. And then Oren sees Xaden and he's like, Ryerson. And he drops his dagger because he's like afraid. And Xaden's like, do you think surrendering's going to save you? Because it's not. And Oren says, but you know he never should have bonded her. You of all people have reason enough to want the weakling dead. We're just correcting a mistake. And Xaden says, dragons don't make mistakes. And Xaden's shadows come out of him like arms and strangle every single one of them except Oren. And then he kills all 5 of them. And Oren's like, let me explain. And Xaden's like, she should have killed you on that flight field. But she's merciful. That is not a flaw I possess. Period, Xaden. Period. It says, he slashes forward so quickly that I barely catch the move, and Oren's throat opens in a horizontal line, blood streaming down his neck and chest in a torrent. Hell yeah, kill that bitch. And Garrick walks in and he's like, damn, Xaden, no time for questioning? Like, you just go straight for the kill? He's like, no need for questioning. And Bodhi walks in too. And they're like, guess we have to clean this up. And after this, Xaden goes to Violet and he's like, oh my god, are you okay, sweet angel? Not really, but you know the vibes. Violet is understandably freaked the fuck out. She's like shaking. She like can't speak from the adrenaline. And in Violet's head, she's like, I'm alive. And he's like, yes, you're alive. And she's like, oh my god, I didn't realize I like said that out loud. I'm just so crazy. And he's like, are you okay? Are you hurt? And he's like, get it together, Violet, and tell me if you're hurt. And she's like, my ribs. She's like, I think one of them hit my ribs with their sword, but I think it's just bruised. And he's like, bruised? From a sword? It's not really adding up, Violet, you know? Taryn is like, come on, Violet, trust him. And she's like, fine. Mira made me dragon scale armor, so that's what's protecting me all this time. And then Xaden demands that Violet let him inspect her for damage. She's like, okay, fine, but like, you're gonna have to undo my corset. Like, I don't even know if you know how to do that. Which, like, of course he does. He does it really fast. Like, expertly fast. As his fingers like touch her back, she like is like horned up. Oren's blood is literally all over your room, Violet, and you're already horny. Like, chill, girl. There are 6 dead bodies in your room, and you're already thinking about sex with Xaden? Like, somebody get this girl some help. And by help, I mean dick. Oh my god, also this horrible thing occurs. Xaden says, how the hell do you get yourself into this thing every morning? And Violet's like, I'm freakishly flexible. It's part of the whole bone snapping, joints tearing thing. You know what that means. Oh god. So he's inspecting her ribs and he's like, they're not broken. You're good. And he puts her shoes on for her. Aww. When he kills people for you and puts your shoes on for you. So he's putting her shoes on because he is going to go take her to their dragons to have a little powwow about what just happened in Violet's room. So they go outside. Xaden just like waltzes up to Taryn and he's like, what kind of powers are you channeling to her? And he's talking about the little stopping of time thing. And Taryn is like, none of your business what powers I'm channeling to her. And Violet's like, he says, and then Xaden's like, I heard him. And Violet's like, you can hear Taryn? And then Xaden says, it is absolutely my business when you expect me to protect her. And then Taryn is like, I got the message to you just fine, human. And then Xaden's like, and I barely made it there in time. And he's like, seems like you had 30 seconds gifted to you. And he's like, and I'd like to know what the fuck happened in there. He's like mad. And Violet's like, chill. Like, do you see he's huge, okay? So like, chill. She's like, don't hurt him, please. He saved me. Like, think we should let this little outburst slide. And Xaden's like, we need to know what happened in that room. Taryn says, do not try and read me, human, or you'll regret it. And then Violet tells Taryn, she's like, don't scorch him. He's just a little freaked out. And then Sigale talks to Violet. And she says, at least we agree on something. Love you, queen. And she's like, oh my god, she talked to me. He's like, I know, I heard. Oh my God, Violet, get with it. He's like, it's because they're mates. Like, they're bonded, so like you can get in there too. And Andarna says, nature likes all things in balance. That's the first thing we're taught. And then Violet's like, what's that supposed to mean? And Xaden can't hear Andarna. He can just hear Taryn because of this mate-sage. And Andarna's like, well, that's not the first thing. It's actually that we shouldn't bond until we're full grown. Or maybe the first is where the sheep are? I like goats better though. And Taryn is like, oh my God, this is why we don't let them bond. Sigala's like, let her explain. And Andarna's like, Feathertails shouldn't bond because they can accidentally gift their powers to humans. Dragons can't channel, not really, until we're big, but we're all born with something special. And so Violet tells Xaden because he can't hear this. And she's like, okay, so like a signet? And Sigala's like, no. A signet is a combination of our power with your ability to channel. It reflects who you are at the core of your being. Yes, we knew this. And then Andarna says, but I gave my gift directly to you because I'm still a Feathertail. And Violet's like, wait, did you just say you're still a Feathertail? And she's like, yep. And she was like, oh my God, you're literally a hatchling. And she's like, I am not. Hatchlings can't even fly. So have some respect. I'm older than that. I'm 2, okay? And Taryn is like, okay, yes, she's 2, but dragons grow way faster than humans. And she's like, you let a juvenile bond? And he's like, I'm not sure anyone lets Andarna do anything. She just does whatever she wants. So Sigale says that Andarna will be full grown in a year or 2, but some are slower than the others. And she's like, if I thought she was actually going to bond, I would have fought a little bit harder against her right of benefaction, which is like their right to do the presentation threshing bonding thing. And Xaden is like, hold on. Is Andarna like your kid? And Sigale's like, don't be ridiculous. You think I'd let my offspring bond while still feathered? And then Taryn says that her parents passed before she hatched. So Andarna is an orphan. Sad. And Andarna's like, it's okay, I've got lots of elders. He's like, Feathertails don't bond because their power is too unpredictable, unstable. The same way you wouldn't hand a toddler your signet, would you, Wing Leader? He said, Gods no. I could barely control it as a first year. And during all this, Violet's like, oh my God, I wonder what it's like for Xaden to like not have control. Like, I'd like to see him lose it. And he's like, exactly. Bonding too young allows them to give their gift directly, and a rider could easily drain them and burn out. Little clarification. If, these people knew that Feathertail dragons could gift their power directly to humans, I'm sure they would find some way to exploit that. Andarna's life and gift is in Violet's hands, which this is kind of weird because if Violet uses all of Andarna's power and Andarna dies, doesn't that mean that Violet dies because she's bonded to this dragon? You know how the whole like rider, dragon without their rider, tragedy, rider without their dragon dead thing? So I'm not really sure how that works, but just know that Violet could essentially suck up all of Andarna's power and kill her. Let me just read the quote. Xaden says, if leadership knew riders could take her gifts for themselves rather than depending on their own signets, she'd be hunted. And Sigale is like, yeah, that's why you can't tell anyone that she's a Feathertail. Hopefully she'll mature once you're out of the quadrant and like this will be dead, done, over with. And then Andarna's like, yeah, I made time stop. I'm proud of myself. Violet is like, which how does she not know that already? She was there. But Violet says in her mind, she's like, nothing can stop time. Nothing. It's unheard of. And Xaden's like shaking Violet. He's like, oh, tell me what she said. What did she say? And Violet's like, she said she can pause time briefly. And he's like, you could stop time in small increments. Taryn is like, they cannot find out that she can do this. And there's also no telling how long she'll have this ability because once Feathertails like mature, they lose their gifts. So this is only a power that Andarna is supposed to have for like just a little bit while she is a Feathertail. And making time stop makes Andarna really, really sleepy. So she's really tired now. It takes a lot out of her. So she needs to go take a little nap. And Xaden tells Violet, he's like, promise me that you won't tell anyone about her stopping time. And she's like, obviously I'm fucking not. Oh my God, I was there for that whole conversation. And then Xaden says, we need to find out how those people got into your room. And she's like, there was somebody with them that had access to my room. And he's like, who is it? And she's like, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe me. And he's like, oh my God, we're going to be together for the rest of our life. You're just going to have to trust me, okay? And then she tells him. All right, cut to formation the next day. They're reading off the death roll of all the 6 people that Xaden killed yesterday. And Xaden announces that there's going to be a role change. So one girl from their squad is going to be swapping with Liam Mari. And he is going to now be in Dane's squad with everybody. And Violet is pissed because she knows that Xaden did this because he wants Liam to be Violet's bodyguard. And so Violet's like annoyed because she's like, oh my God, I don't need a bodyguard, okay? I don't need Liam. Panchak also announces that there has been a breach in the codex, and Xaden goes up to the dais and he explains the situation that occurred last night. And he says, but the attack was orchestrated by a rider who fled before I arrived, a rider who had access to the map of where all first years are assigned to sleep, and that rider must be brought to swift justice. And he's like, I call you to answer for your crime against Cadet Sorengale, Wing Leader Amber Mavis. Not Amber Mavis. Just kidding. We all probably could have suspected it was her. Anyways, Dane, he's like, Amber would never do that. She loves the rules too much, like me. He goes over to Violet and he like tries to grab her head and read her memories to make sure that Violet is telling the truth. He's like, Violet, you didn't see things right. He is gaslighting Violet. And he's like, let me get a look in those memories. And Violet's like, get your fucking hands away from me. And then she asks Taryn, she's like, are you able to like share a memory I have with all the dragons? And Taryn is like, usually no, but I'll make an exception for you. So Taryn shares the memory with all the dragons in the courtyard, I guess. So now Dane knows that Violet's telling the truth because his dragon, Kath, told him. And Amber, she's freaking out. And she's like, you're just using this to get revenge on me because my family didn't support your dad during the rebellion. And Xaden's like, he's not even paying attention to her. He's like, you're not worth my time, bitch. And Amber's like, I did it for the good of the quadrant, you know, like this weakling obviously doesn't blah, 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 blah. Like Violet's so weak. I was trying to kill her off, guys. Come on. Excuse it. And this is so annoying too. But Violet, she was too busy trying to prove that she was telling the truth to Dane that she didn't realize the consequence of what accusations she was giving. Violet's like, wait, no, don't kill her. I wasn't trying to kill Amber Mavis. Like, let her live. So she'll try to kill me again. Wah, wah, wah. Xaden, he's like, sorry, Violet. She knew the consequences whenever she decided to pull that shit. So, sorry. So, yeah, Taryn incinerates Amber, and Amber's dragon cries. And that's really the only sad part of this scene. All right, so it's been a couple of weeks. Liam now has archives duty with Violet. She likes Liam. Liam's her little buddy. She says sometimes he annoys me because he's always leaving these little piles of wood shavings around because he's always whittling little objects. What's up with all this whittling in these romantasy books? Anyways, Liam, he's whittling his little figurines. And she also likes him because he's like courteous and helpful. They walk into the archives together and Violet is like, morning, Cadet Pearson. And he's like, morning, Violet. Liam comes in. He's like, Cadet Mari. And Liam's like, hey, Cadet Pearson. Like he just said it to him the same. So Violet is starting to understand the prejudice against the marked ones. We get a little Liam backstory and we find out that Liam's mom was Colonel Mari. I don't know if that means that she was a colonel for like the Navarian army or if she was a colonel in the rebellion. But so like, I'm like, I don't know if she betrayed Navarre because she was a colonel in the Navarre army and then switched sides or what. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So anyways, Violet's like, ugh, like I guess I'm not much better. I hated Xaden the second I saw him and I hadn't even talked to him yet. Like I didn't know a single thing about him. And then they go to see Jesinia and Lily, he's kind of like flirting with her. And Violet's like, Jesinia, she's not going to be into you. She's like a long-term relationships girl. And he's like, how the hell can anybody think long-term in here? And she's like, look, people aren't dying every day in the scribe quadrant like they are in the writer's quadrant. And he's like, oh yeah, I forget. Violet's like, plus I've known her for years. And Liam's like, oh yeah, because you wanted to be a scribe. And she's like, how did you know that? How did you know I wanted to be a scribe? And he's like, oh, just, everything about you. Just kidding. Liam explains that he did some research on Violet whenever he realized that he was going to be assigned as her bodyguard. And Violet's like, what did you want to be when you grew up? And he's like, haha, alive. And Violet's like, okay, weird answer. And she's like, how do you know Xaden? And he's like, oh, we were foster brothers. And Violet's like, so dumb. So we find out that after the apostasy, which is the Tirish term for the rebellion, obviously they had no parents to go home to because they killed them all. So all of the rebellion leaders' children, all the marked ones, they were split between noble families within Navarre that stayed loyal. And Violet's like, why didn't you live with your dad? And he was like, kind of hard to live with my dad, Violet, whenever he was killed on the same day as my mom. And she's like, God. This part is really annoying. Violet's trust in the government is like generally annoying. Anyways, so she was like, his name isn't on the execution list at Caldir, which is apparently wherever they killed all of their parents. In Violet's head, she's like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm arguing with him. Like, obviously he knows his dad is dead. Liam says, yeah, my dad was executed at my family home. I had to watch that one too. And he's also like, you read the execution like roll? And she's like, yeah, I had to make sure that one name was on there. Finn Ryerson, because Finn, according to battle records, killed Brennan with a crossbow in the chest during the Battle of Arisha, I think. Liam was like, yeah, me and Xaden are foster brothers. We were both fostered by Duke Lindell. And Liam's sister was sent somewhere else. And Violet's like, they separated you guys? How could they be so bad? She's like, that wasn't in the text I read about the rebellion. He's like, no worries though. She'll be here next year in the Riders Quadrant. She's like, well, she could always choose another quadrant if she wants, if she doesn't want to risk her life. And Liam's like, yeah, no, Violet. She has to go to the Riders Quadrant. He's like, all the rebellion kids are forced into the Riders Quadrant. And Liam thinks that they put them in the Riders Quadrant because it gave them a chance to rise in rank. But he says that people like Imogen think that leadership thought that dragons had like impeachable honor, and so that no dragon would ever bond a marked one. And so they were hoping that whenever all these marked ones started going to Basgiath, that the dragons would just kill them off for them. Obviously, that's not the case. And so now the leadership is kind of like, oh, fuck. I don't really know what to do with these marked ones now, because I thought that they were just going to like get killed off here in the Riders Quadrant, and now they're not. And dragons are like bonding them. So I don't really know what to do about that, but okay. Liam tells us that there are also 107 marked ones total. And the oldest one is Xaden. And the youngest one is named Julianne, and she is 6. She was born with the rebellion relic. So like, I guess they killed her mom like while she was pregnant, and then like got the baby out. I don't know. Okay, so Violet is horrified by that also, because she's like, holy shit, they literally cut that baby out of that mom. And also gave that baby a rebellion relic, which it like hurts when you get the relic. It like burns, I think. So she's like, they burned a baby. And Violet's like, oh my God, I'm sorry that I'm so ignorant. And Liam's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to ask. He's like, somebody should remember. Violet, she's kind of like, wait, can I trust Liam? Like, considering all this new information I have now. She says, is it hard protecting someone whose mother oversaw your parents' execution? And he's like, are you wondering if you can trust me? And she's like, yeah. He's like, I get it. All I can say is that your survival is essential to Ryerson's, and I owe him everything. Liam and Violet are headed back to class. They've got their scrolls. They've got all the professor's paperwork and stuff. And then a little scroll falls off of the cart, and it kind of unravels a little bit. And so Violet goes to pick it up. She's like, no classified stamp. She gives it a little skim, and it says that Somerton was attacked, which was another high altitude attack like the first attack was in Battle Brief. And Violet's like, well, I guess we'll hear about it in Battle Brief today. As she's putting the scroll away, Violet's like, ugh, she like gets hit with something internally. And Liam's like, are you okay? And she's like, Taran just woke up and he's starving. So like, she's like, can feel his hunger. She's like, oh my God, please Taran, go eat something. And she asks Liam, she's like, oh my God, does it ever get easier to like block out what they're feeling? And he's like, it gets better once you start channeling, but it'll always like kind of be there. And she's like, Flash forward to Battle Brief later that day, and Liam and Violet are sitting next to each other. Xaden walks in and she's like fighting the urge to look at him because she's like still mad about this whole bodyguard situation. Rhiannon is like, well, Violet, people do love to try to kill you. And Violet was like, it was one time. And she's like, And then Violet's like, okay, I guess you kind of have a point. The only time I've actually been targeted was at night. And it's not like Liam here sleeping in my bedroom. And Liam's like, I mean, I'm not opposed. And then Violet's like, don't even start. You are such a shameless flirt. And he's like, thank you. And she's like, that wasn't a compliment. So, they're chummy. All right. Rhiannon is like, don't mind her. She's just a little sexually frustrated. It makes her a little crabby. And Violet's like, I am not. But we know she is. And Liam's like, sorry, I don't make the cut. But I'm sure Ryerson would be fine with me reviewing a couple candidates if you're interested. Especially if it means you'll stop flipping him off in front of his entire wing. And Rhiannon's like, and how exactly would you be reviewing these candidates? I mean, you could watch just to make sure she's fully covered, so no one sticks it to her. Like, stop, it's not funny. It's not funny. But Riddick comes in. Oh, are we telling dick jokes now? Because my entire life has led up to this moment. And everybody laughs because Riddick is so funny. He's such comedic relief. And then Liam lets it slip that Xaden actually warded Violet's door. So that means nobody can come in her room except her and him because he warded it. She's like, that's crazy controlling, but it's also kind of sweet. She's writing in her little notebook for class and she's like, Summerton. She's drawing hearts. No, she's not, but that would be funny. She puts her quill down and it rolls off her desk. And a little tendril of a shadow curls up and picks it up for her. So Xaden is paying attention to her when he picks up your quill. When you drop it in class. Class is getting ready to begin and Deborah says she has an announcement that not only will the winners of this year's squad battle receive bragging rights, but they'll also be given a trip to the front lines to shadow an active wing. Yay! So fun. And Rhiannon is like, so if we win, we get a chance to die sooner? Violet's like, maybe they're trying some reverse psychology thing. And Deborah's like, I know it's not until the spring, but I just wanted to give you a little taste so you could get motivated. And Markham steps up and he's like, all right, now that we have your attention, the front lines are kind of quiet today. So we're going to be talking about a battle that happened way in the past. Violet is like, surely he didn't say that because I saw that scroll this morning. This shakes her. She can't stop thinking about why they're not talking about Summerton. Violet turns to Liam and she's like, is he serious? And he's like, yeah, I think he is. And she's like, fuck. Liam asks Violet and he's like, was the scroll classified? And she's like, no. She's like, but maybe I missed it. And he's like, yeah, you must have missed it. She's like, that's the only possible explanation. I thought I missed that it was classified. All right, this is a good chapter, guys. This is a good chapter. So get ready. A little over a month has passed. Violet has still not started channeling powers from Tairn. Tairn, he's got a little bit of trust issues. They never mentioned Summerton ever again. So she's getting a little sus about Battle Brief. And she's like, what else aren't they telling us about? Summerton was just one, but what if there are others? Violet is sparring with Rhiannon and Violet is just not with it. She's distracted and Rhiannon's like, come on, get it together. So Violet's like, okay, I'm good. I'm not distracted. And Rhiannon's like, okay. And Rhiannon takes Violet down pretty fast and knocks the wind out of Violet. And she's like, shit, sorry, Vi. Right before Rhiannon got Violet, Violet was looking somewhere else. She was distracted. And so Rhiannon takes a look. And Xaden and Garrick are both sparring over there on the other mat shirtless. And Violet is watching and now everybody else is watching and Violet says in her mind, she says, holy fucking hot. Stop, please. Rhiannon hits Violet and she's like, bro, come on. And Rhiannon's like, I see. Liam sees this too and he's like, stop objectifying our wing leader. And then they're like, we're not objectifying. We're just we're just, taking notes. And he's like, sure. And then Dane walks in and he's like, if y'all are that easily distracted, then we're fucked for squad battle. And everybody's like, oh, Dane's here. Boner, gone. Rhea and Violet, they resume their sparring sesh. And then Rhiannon flips Violet on her back and knocks the wind out of her. And Rhiannon's like, oh, sorry, Vi. And then Jack is like, oh, can you believe Tairn chose that? I don't understand. He's like, make it make sense. Which, good point, Jack. Good point. I'll let you have that one. Liam steps between Jack and Violet, and Jack is like, it's kind of funny. He's like, he's like, stand down, guard dog. He's like, I'm not gonna kill her right now, so just like fucking chill. Jack's friend from First Wing comes up and like offers him like a slice of his orange. And Jack like shoves his hand away, and he's like, get that nauseous shit away from me. Do you want me to end up in the infirmary? He's such a little titty baby. And then Liam's like, walk the fuck away, Barlow. Xaden also walks up because he sees this whole tiff, and he's like ready to go fuck Jack up. And Jack says, we could just settle this now if you're done hiding behind the big, strong men. Because if you want to do it later, I'll just kill you during a challenge. So I can wait. And then Violet's like, he's right. The only reason I don't accept his challenge is because I'm not sure I'll win. And the only reason he isn't attacking me now is because of Liam and Xaden. And so Violet just kind of stands there after Jack says that. And he's like, that's what I thought. And it says Jack blows her a kiss. What? Jack says, that's what I thought. Like, huh? Whatever. And then Violet's like, well, you ran at threshing. I saw you. And we both know when it comes down to it, you'll run again. Because that's what cowards do. And Dana's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Violet, shut the fuck up. Stop egging this man's on. Dana's like, she's not wrong. This is the first time Dana's talked to her since the whole Amber Mavis thing. Violet's like, so now you want to talk to me. And then Xaden steps in between Dana and Violet, and he's like, give us a second. But he's talking to Dane. He's like, why the fuck aren't you wearing your little dragon armor? And she's like, I have to clean it sometime. That's gross. And he's like, and you chose sparring to clean it and take it off? He's like, put that shit back on. And he walks away. As he's walking away, Violet sees Xaden's scars on his back. He's got a fuck ton of them. And the scars in Fourth Wing, they're silver. After this whole deal, Terrence says that Violet controlled her temper and stood her ground. So now she's ready for his power. So, okay. So Terrence starts channeling powers to Violet, and it hurts really bad. She's like, it's an all-consuming feeling, like she's about to rip from the inside out. After a little bit, she kind of gets used to it. And then it's just kind of like a little hum of power underneath her skin. So she has powers now. Woo! Not a signet yet, but she does have powers. So she can do like the lesser magic, which is like lifting things. And you can also like power little like mage lights. And then she's like, wow, I can't wait to go tell Rhiannon. She's going to be so excited that I get to go to Professor Carr's class with her and Liam. Like, yay. So she opens up her door, and then it says, heat washes over me, prickling my skin and centering low in my stomach. Odd, but whatever. It's probably just a side effect of the power. I throw open the lock on my door and yank it open. Violet? And it's like fuzzy. And Liam's like, are you all right? And she's like gripping the door frame. She's like steadying herself. It's gone as quickly as it appeared, but the driving, thundering desire remains. Oh shit. This is lust. I'm gonna have to take a break, y'all. And then Violet says, I look at him then. Really, honestly look at him. He's more than handsome, with strong features and sky blue eyes that are startlingly beautiful. Liam's like, why are you looking at me like that? And she's like what? Stop. She says, I debate rubbing against him like a cat in heat, while demanding he appease this unimaginable ache. Girl, stop. She's like, but he's not who you really want. He's not Xaden. He's like, you don't look like you feel like yourself. In her mind, she's like, yep, it's because I'm not. She realizes that she is feeling Terran's emotions with Sigale. And Violet's like, I'm good. Go to bed. Go to bed, Liam. Get back in there. And so whenever Xaden took her to talk to the dragons, the night that Violet almost got murdered in her sleep, Xaden showed her a little secret passageway. So she takes this little secret passageway and she gets outside and she's like, at least I'm outside. And she sees Xaden out there, leaning back against the wall, one foot braced on the stone, smoking and watching me like he doesn't have a care in the world. And Violet's like, is that Churum? Which I guess is like weed. Xaden's like, want some? Unless you're here to continue our earlier argument. In that case, none for you. And she's like, no, I don't want any. We're not allowed to smoke that. And he's like, yeah, well, the people who made that rule obviously weren't bonded to Sigale and Terran, were they? And she's like, God, I could stare at his mouth forever. And he's like, it helps with distancing yourself. She's like, I feel like I'm on fucking fire. And he's like, yeah, that happens. And he's like, ha 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 ha. She's like, Xaden, while brooding and bossy, dangerous and lethal, is a toe-curling sight that makes my pulse quicken. But Xaden laughing, his head thrown back with a smile curving his mouth, is drop-dead beautiful. My stupid, foolish heart feels like there's a fist around it, squeezing tight. There's nothing I wouldn't sacrifice, nothing I wouldn't give to have one unguarded moment with this man I'm going to be tethered to for the rest of our lives. She's like, this has to be Tairn. It just has to. And yet, I know it isn't. While I admired Liam upstairs, I am completely, utterly obsessed with Xaden. His eyes meet mine in the moonlight. Xaden says, oh, Violence, you're going to have to learn to shield against Tairn, or his escapades with Sigale will drive you mad, or into someone else's bed. And Violet is like, I know, I'm horrified to see Liam again. And he's like, Liam, why? He's like, wait, where the hell is your bodyguard? And she's like, I'm my own bodyguard. Bah. And he's in bed. And Xaden's like, in your bed? His voice is like a crack of lightning. She's like, no, not that it should matter to you anyways. She's like, is he jealous? I find that oddly comforting. He's like, it doesn't matter to me as long as you're both consenting. And trust me, you're in no condition to consent. And she's like, you have no clue what I'm capable of consenting. Undeniable, unquenchable need nearly takes me out at the knees. And Xaden's like, why the hell aren't you shielding? And she's like, I literally just got my powers like 2 seconds ago, so if you could just cut me some slack right now. And so he gives her a little speed lesson on how to shield, and she's really good at it, duh. And while he's teaching her how to shield, he's like touching her, and she's like, oh, this requires touching me? And he's like, no, you just have really touchable skin. Oh God. We get a little mental image of what shielding looks like, which he's like, okay, go to a place in your mind that is like your safe place. And she's like, okay, archives, got it. And he's like, do you see like some sort of glimmering, shimmering stream nearby? Like, and she's like, yes, it's behind the door. And he's like, okay, you need to like metaphorically close that door that will like shield him out of your mind. And so she's like struggling in her mind to like push the doors, and then she closes it and she's like, whew, got it. And he's like, wow, you're so amazing. I couldn't do that for like weeks. And she's like, I just have like a really good teacher. And he's like, damn it, touching you was like a bad idea. And she's like, it was the worst. He groans and my core melts at the sound. Kissing you would be a cataclysmic mistake. She's like, calamitous. We'll both regret it. Naturally. And then he's like, fuck it. And then he kisses her. And then, you know, obviously she's like obsessed. You know, they're like making out. Okay, he tastes like churum, aka weed, and mint. So yeah, they kiss and they have like this really intense makeout sesh. And she's like, I surrender completely, melting into him, my body going pliant against his and losing that mental foothold he calls grounding. A flash of light burns behind my closed eyes, followed by a boom of thunder. Thunder snow isn't uncommon around here, but damn does it summarize how this feels. Wild and out of control. And he's like, you have to go. And she's like, why? I want to fuck. And he's like, because I can't. Like, I can't control myself around you. So you're going to have to go. He's like, this isn't what you want. And she's like, you don't know what I want. And so she's like walking back to her dorm and she's like embarrassed because she's like, oh, Xaden stopped us, but like I didn't. You know, I was willing to do like literally anything he wanted me to do. Violet does what every girl does after they kiss their crush and goes and tells her best friend. They're talking and Rhiannon is like, how is it going to work next year with him graduating and then you being here and their dragons not being able to be separated from each other? And Violet's kind of like, ooh, I haven't really thought about that. She's like, I guess we'll just have to like fly back and forth. He's the most powerful writer of our generation. He's going to be needed on the front, not here. And Rhiannon is like, for now. He's the most powerful writer of our generation for now. And then they get distracted because Liam is knocking on Rhiannon's door like, hello, is Sorgil in there? I can't find her. And Rhiannon's like, chill. She's just in here. Like, nobody's going to kill her in my room, Liam. And then Rhiannon is like, look what happened to me yesterday too. And she makes a book like disappear and then reappear across her room. So she has the power of summoning. So that's pretty cool. So she can like make objects disappear and then reappear in other locations. And apparently, like, as her power strengthens and as she gets better at controlling it, she could also like walk through walls and like summon herself. That's pretty sick. I don't know how summoning is different from distance wielding. Like, if you are a summoner, how are you not also a distance wielder? Do you know what I'm saying? Violet tells us that this power is like super rare and hasn't been seen in like a century. They're all walking to class and Liam hands Violet a little baby Tairn that he whittled. And Violet's like, oh my god, I love it. And of course, Dane has to ruin this amazing scene where Liam is gifting Tairn to Violet. He's like, Violet, can we talk? And she's like, I guess. He's like, you didn't let me see your memory. You gave it to everybody else and didn't just show it to me. She's like, bitch, you didn't ask. You literally tried to grab my face. He's like, I didn't ask. And she's like, no. And he's like, I'm sorry. And Dane is sad because he's disappointed in himself. He's also sad that Xaden was the one that saved her in her room and not him. He's also sad because Xaden trusted Violet whenever Violet told him that Amber Mavis was the one in her room. But Dane, he did not trust her. Xaden didn't even have to see the memory to trust Violet. And Dane knows that. And he's kind of like, I suck. And he's right for that. He's also sad because Violet didn't tell him about the attacks. He had to hear it during formation. Blah, blah, blah. And Violet is like, oh my god, Dane, stop taking this Xaden shit so seriously. Like, we're just tethered because of Sigale and Tairn, okay? Like, I don't trust Xaden more than I trust you. But in her head, she's like, maybe I do. And Dane says, look, you don't know everything there is to know about Xaden, Vi. I have a higher security clearance due to my signet, and you need to be careful. Xaden has secrets, reasons to never forgive your mother, and I don't want him to use you to get his revenge. She's like, shut up, Dane. Shut up about Xaden. She was like, even if he does try to attack me, guess what? I've got 2 badass dragons to protect me. He leaves her be. She goes to Kara's class for the first time because she just started channeling. And Kara's like, are you joining us today, Violet? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, I can't wait to see what your signet is. Your sister, you know, she has a really amazing signet, which is she's able to expand the wards. So she can like strengthen the wards and like expand the area that they cover. So that's a pretty handy dandy notebook in the war effort. By the way, how did Mira find out that she could strengthen the wards? That seems like a weird thing to like discover that you can do that, but I digress. Kara says, and like it was so sad to lose your brother because her brother was a mender, like Nolan, Morgan Freeman. Menders are sick because they mend anything that's broken. Okay, so that includes people and it includes like buildings and structures. And not only do they fix what's broken, but they can also break things. So Kara is like, look, your brother and your sister, they had some really great signets. So, and you just bonded to Tairn, so hopefully you're gonna have an amazing signet too. So now she's learning how to wield her power in Professor Carr's class. A month passes. She's training. She's fighting. She wins her first challenge without poison and she earns a dagger. She's putting in the work, okay? Like, it's been over a month, okay? And Xaden still hasn't talked to her about that kiss. And she's kind of sad about it. Pretty much everybody's gotten their signet except Violet at this point. Riddick, he can wield ice. Sawyer, you know, he's got the metallurgy shit. Rhiannon, you know, summoner. Liam has the power of farsight. That's pretty dope. So he can like see really far away. Amazing. Some more weeks pass. Still no signet from Violet and still no word from Xaden about the kiss. She sneaks out at nighttime to go look at the challenge board. That's how she knows who she's going to fight. And she sees that Jack Barlow is under her name. So Jack is going to try to kill her tomorrow. So she's kind of like, can't push it back now, you know. The next morning she's like nauseous. Obviously Liam is nearby and she's like, hey, if I tell you something, will you not tell Xaden? And he's like, I don't think so. And she's like, please. Liam says, would me keeping it to myself alter your safety in any way? And she's like, no, because it really wouldn't. She's like, there's nothing anybody can do about it. That's the truth. So she tells him, and he's like, why did you make me promise that? She's like, don't worry. I'm going to use everything I have to my advantage, which is one thing. So Immaterio announces the challenge, and Riddick is like, no fucking way. And Jack is like, finally, woohoo, now's my chance to kill Violet. Can't wait. Liam is like, please let me break my promise, Violet, please. In her mind, she's like, there's no telling where Xaden is right now, so yeah, sure, go tell him. And he's like, thank you. And he like runs out the door. Immaterio says, no wielding. Tap out or knockout earns you a victory. So they're fighting. Jack is using death blows. Riddick tells us that that's apparently not allowed. And then Jack is like, admit that you knew it would be so fucking easy for me to kill you. Your precious wing leader isn't here to save you. Violet kicks him straight in the balls. A classic move. You can never go wrong with a good old kick to the balls. And she's like, tap out. I can cut you open at any second. Both you and I know if this were real life, you'd be done. And he's like, fuck off. He throws a dagger at Violet and she like blocks herself, but the dagger gets lodged in her forearm. Owie. And Immaterio's like, no throwing. And Jack is now beating the fuck out of Violet. And it says, I stay on my feet until his hands clasp my face. Agony fills every cell in my body as violent, vibrating energy rips through me with an intensity that makes it feel like he's cleaving ligament from bone, muscle from tendon. I scream as I'm shaken by an internal force I don't understand, as though he's forcing his own power into my body, shocking me with 1,000 stings of vibrating energy. She's like, now, if I don't do it now, he'll kill me. My vision is already darkening at the edges. I reach a trembling hand into the pocket of my leathers and thumb open the stopper on the vial. His sadistic grin and a red rim around his eyes are all I can see as he forces more and more power into my body. But his hands are occupied and he's too obsessed with his victory to hear that I've stopped screaming, to see that I'm moving. I shove the vial against Jack's smile so hard I feel one of his teeth break. Kinda hard. His eyes fly impossibly wide and he drops his hands, clutching his own neck as his airway closes. So he's going into anaphylactic shock. Riddick is like, what the hell's wrong with him? And Violet's like, oranges. He's allergic to oranges. So silly. So silly. And so Violet wakes up in the infirmary. It's not Riddick sitting there next to her. Oh no, it is Xaden. And he's pissed. He says, oranges. And she's like, yeah, I just had to work with what I had. You know? And he's like, well, seeing as you kept us alive, that's cool, I guess. He's like, unfortunately, since you told Riddick what it was, they were able to like EpiPen this bitch and save him. And apparently he's like 5 beds over from Violet, so he's doing fine. She's like, I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted him to stop killing me. Xaden knows that Jack is not one of those types of people. He's gonna keep trying to kill you until you kill him. Overall, I think Jack is like not the best villain. I need some Jack backstory. I need some motivation as to why Jack is doing these things. Like, he's got to have some redeeming qualities. And I need to understand his motives because that would make him a better villain. But right now, all we have is that he's just like power hungry and an asshole. But it's like, tell me why, you know? You need to make me sympathize with Jack. That is what makes a villain a good villain, I think. You need to understand Jack's motive and cause. You know what I mean? Anyways, Xaden is pissed because Violet didn't tell him that she was gonna be challenging Jack the next day. And Violet's like, well, next year when you're not here. She's like, not really like you've been available much for these past few months. She's like, if I knew any better, I think that kiss scared you. And Xaden's like, what's there to say? It's a bad idea. We're going to be stationed together the rest of our lives. Let's not complicate it. If you did that to just get my attention, it worked. He was like, obviously I can't trust Liam to tell me what's going on. Obviously Imogen isn't doing a good enough job training you on the mat. So he's like, I'm taking over everything when it comes to you now. Flash forward to whenever she's healed and they are sparring on the mat together, her and Xaden. And he's like, you know what? The problem is not your fighting style. It's actually pretty good. He's like, the problem is that your daggers are too big for your little small body. So Xaden shows her these smaller daggers and they're like really pretty. They've got all these like runes on it. They're all engraved with like tearish knots. And Violet's like, it's spectacular. And he's like, it's yours. I made them for you. Oh my God, when he makes special daggers for you to fit in your small, tiny hands. She's got like 10 or so of these daggers, okay? And she's like, thanks, but I can't take them, like we have to earn them in a challenge. And he's like, okay, then get them off me and then you can have them. So they're flirting, they're fighting. She gets the daggers. Another month passes. She's just training with Xaden. She's working out with Imogen. She still hasn't manifested her signet though. So Xaden takes Violet to the flight field. He's like, sorry to pull you out of class, but like you've really got to work on your flying because you'll be on the front lines next year since they can't be apart for more than a couple days, And as they're walking to the flight field, they pass Colonel Atos, Panchak, and General Mommy. She's there too. Violet exchanges some niceties with Dane's dad, and she sees her mom, and her mom's like, I hear you're having trouble wielding. And Violet's like, I have the best shields in my year, though. Hopefully all that power that you channel from Terran won't be squandered. But we are curious, what kind of powers are you channeling from your little baby dragon? And Violet's like, none yet. And then I think Dane's dad is like, we were wondering if we could actually study Andarna. Since we've never, had a cadet bond, such a small dragon. And Violet's like, yeah, no. Unfortunately, I don't see her being comfortable with that. She's pretty private, even with me. Pity, Colonel Atos says. We've had the scribes on it since threshing, and the only reference they can find in the archives about the power of Feathertails is hundreds of years old. Which is funny, because I remember your father doing a bit of research about the Second Croveland Uprising, and he mentioned something about Feathertails, but we can't seem to find that tome. Mom looks at me with expectation, as though to ask me without actually asking. And Violet's like, I don't think he finished his research on that event before he died. I couldn't even tell you where his notes are. She's like, it's not fully a lie because I don't know exactly where they are, but I have an idea. And Violet's mom is like, too bad. And then they walk away. Based on that whole exchange, Xaden now realizes that Violet is not close with her mommy because he was surprised that Violet didn't tell her about Andarna and her powers. And he was like, I didn't know it was like that between you two. Which to me infers that it was like that between him and his dad. Like his dad were really close. So he assumes that Violet and her mom are really close. So that is sad. That is sad. Violet is like, oh, that interaction that between me and my mom, that was totally normal. That was more normal than it usually is. And she says that she spent almost an entire year ignoring me when Dad died, which was almost as wholesome as the year she spent barely tolerating my existence because I wasn't perfect like Brennan or a warrior like Mira. And Xaden's like, she doesn't know you very well then. And she's like, or she sees right through me. Oh, forgot to mention also before her mom walks away, she's like, glad to see you're doing well, even if the company you're forced to keep is more than questionable. So she's like, I don't like that you're hanging out with Zaddy. Fast forward again. Squad battle is now going on. They're currently 7th out of 25 squads, but Liam is currently in this sparring challenge, and if he wins, then they jump to 3rd place. Pretty good. And guess what? He wins! Woo! Everyone is celebrating. Even Imogen is celebrating, it says. Commandant Panchak steps out onto the mat and announces that the unknown task that they have to do every year, the unknown task that they're going to have to perform for the final thing in squad battle is actually going to start now. We get a little backstory that normally they tell them a day in advance so they have time to prepare and then they go do it. But he's like, no, this year it's going to be a surprise and it's starting right now. And their challenge is to find and acquire by any means necessary the one thing that would be the most advantageous to our enemies regarding the war effort. Leadership will serve as unbiased judges and the winning squad will be awarded 60 points. The only catch is that it has to be something within the walls of Bascaeth and it can't be a dragon. And they have 3 hours to do this. Their whole squad is noodling about what they think they're going to do. And then Imogen sees that Violet, her wheels are turning. Okay. And Imogen is like, spit it out. Violet's like, okay, we are going to break into my mom's office. Which, this feels a tad unfair. Those fucking Nepo babies, I swear to God. We find out that Imogen is able to wipe a person's recent memories. So she's anti-Dane. And apparently Quinn, who's not on the board, she can astral project. Pretty cool. So they use those. They're in General Sorrengail's office. Violet says, there are 3 folded missives in the middle, and I pick up the first, revealing a sharp dagger with an alloy-infused hilt and what looks to be a Tirish rune in the handle that she must be using as a letter opener or something. I unfold the letter with as much care as I can. So this letter is from an executive officer that's stationed at Athabine, begging for reinforcements because the raids around Athabine have been getting really bad and are like spreading the wing too thin. Another letter is from a colonel about how protests are rising within Tyrrendor regarding conscription. Tyrrendor is big and like they supply the largest amount of soldiers, so they can't afford to lose like what they have. And Violet's like, well, this isn't exactly new. Tyrrendor should already be one of the safest provinces on the continent. Well, except Arisha, the capital, that was burned during the rebellion at the Battle of Arisha. So when she's looking at the map to reference the places that these letters are talking about, she's like, wait, we should take this map. The guard is waking up outside, so they gotta like speed out. They run to the auditorium wherever they're going, and they make it just in time. So she presents the map, and Kaori, I think, is like, how do we know that this map is up to date? And Violet is like, because I stole it out of my mom's office. And everybody's like, wow, she's so cool. She like looks over and Xaden's like standing there all cool and he's like nodding in approval, and she's like, I don't even care if we don't win, like I won because I got Xaden's approval. They win squad battles. Woo! So now they're going to an active outpost for 5 days. Woo! War. So they head to Montserrat, which just so happens to be where Mira is stationed. Woo! We love Mira. They reunite, they hug, they cry. So happy little reunion. Rhiannon is like, do you know where we are? My village is literally less than an hour away on foot. And Violet's like, okay, we're gonna go sneak out. Because remember, Rhiannon's sister had a little baby and she wants to go see him. Mira catches them. She's like, where the hell do you think you're going? And then Violet's like, look, Rhiannon's village is like an hour away. That's like 5-minute dragon time. She was like, if I had a kid, wouldn't you like do anything to go see it? And she's like, ugh, fine. I know you're going to do it if I don't go anyway, so like just let me come with you. So Mira and Violet and Rhiannon are all going to Rhiannon's house. And Rhiannon meets her little baby nephew. It's a boy. I know that's what y'all were like really waiting to hear. They're chilling at her house. They're talking. They're reminiscing about the past. They're looking at Rhiannon's family and they're like, I don't think we were ever like that. And Mira's like, nah, we were not sentimental. And Mira's like, oh, by the way, Violet, I actually brought you that book that you love that Dad read to you, The Fables of the Baron. I have it here with me at Montserrat. And Violet's like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Figured you'd be pissed if you graduated and it was gone. I mean, whatever would you do if you forgot a minute detail of how the gallant riders took out the army of Wyvern and the Venin who sucked the land drive magic? I know they're just stories, but I never used to get why the villains would choose to corrupt their souls and become Venin. But now, we have the kind of power people would kill for, Violet. Dragons and griffins are the gatekeepers. And I'm sure that to someone jealous enough, ambitious enough, risking a soul would be a fair price for the ability to wield. Just makes me glad our dragons are so discerning. And our wards keep the griffin riders at bay. Who the hell knows what kind of people those fucking creatures choose? They say bye to Rhiannon's family, and Violet's like, hey Mira, you ever been stationed with somebody who has like mated dragons? She's like, no. She's like, yeah, I'm just wondering like how long they can really be apart. And then Xaden emerges from the shadows and he's like, turns out their max is 3 days.